We'll talk to CNN's John King about this and other political headlines after the assassination of Charlie Kirk on the day that his killer, or at least his alleged killer, is arraigned. Then with the rise of political violence, are you logging off from toxic online spaces and reconnecting with actual people and places? Call or text.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll check in with the Wildflower Alliance, which offers peer support services in Western Mass. We'll talk to Ephraim, Akiva, and Tokyo Baldwin about their harm reduction and mental health work. All that is ahead, the 11 o'clock hour at BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from Springfield.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is on his way to London after making a stop in Qatar today. Rubio also visited Israel, where he warned that the window was closing fast on a diplomatic end to the war in Gaza. NPR's Carrie Khan reports from Tel Aviv.
Rubio wrapped up his Israel visit, warning that next week's UN meeting, where countries including France and Canada are set to recognize a Palestinian state, emboldens Hamas. Netanyahu echoed those comments in a speech Monday night at an archaeological site in Jerusalem's Old City, claimed by both Palestinians and Israelis.
This is our city. It is forever our city. It will never be divided again, and there will be no Palestinian state.
He and Rubio warned that unilateral actions such as next week's UN meeting will bring about repercussions and similar unilateral action. There are calls inside Israel for official annexation of the occupied West Bank. Carrie Khan, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The Republican-led Congress has 2 weeks to reach a deal to avert a government shutdown at the end of the month. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports both parties remain far apart on a funding plan.
A stopgap funding measure passed earlier this year will run out of money on September 30th. Republicans passed that plan with help from Senate Democrats, but this time around, they say they won't help the GOP. Already, President Trump and Republicans have rescinded billions in funding. So now, Democrats are pushing for a regular government appropriations plan, and some Republicans agree. Democrats are also pushing for an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies that expire in December. And both parties want to ramp up security measures for political figures in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
President Trump has filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. The suit accuses the publication and 4 of its journalists of defamation. NPR's David Folkenflik reports the lawsuit is the latest salvo in the president's war against major media outlets.
He sued ABC News and CBS and won $16 million payouts for them to settle those suits, although legal observers all thought that those were essentially frivolous or very light legal peril to them. He's most recently filed a lawsuit prior to now against the Wall Street Journal and his political ally Rupert Murdoch, which tells you something about his willingness to do it.
That's NPR's David Folkenflik reporting. Hollywood icon Robert Redford has died. The legendary actor starred in numerous films over a career that spanned more than 50 years. Redford was 89 years old. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Rest in peace, Robert Redford. Great actor. After finishing in third place in Boston's preliminary election for the City Council District 7 seat, Maverick Alfonso is pushing for a recount. He trails the second-place finisher, Minyard Culpepper, by just 17 votes.
We want to investigate if there are any errors in this moment. But most of all, we want to ensure that all the votes are represented, or all the voters from District 7 are represented.
The race to represent District 7 was extremely tight, with just 100 votes separating first and fifth place. Only the top 2 finishers advanced to the general election ballot in November. Meanwhile, no less than 18 Massachusetts cities and towns are holding preliminary elections today as voters from Northampton to Gloucester head to the polls to whittle down the fields of candidates competing to become the next mayors, city councilors, school committee members, and more. There are big three races to keep an eye on right now from our standpoint. The first is in Northampton, where Mayor Gina Louise Chiara is facing three challengers on today's ballot: Julian Duclos, Dan Brindell, and Dave Dombrowski. Another is Somerville. In Somerville, incumbent Mayor Katiana Ballantyne is facing two challenges on today's ballot from City Councilors Jake Wilson and Willie Burnley Jr. And the third is in Brockton, where 8 candidates are in the race to replace outgoing Mayor Robert Sullivan. Today's vote narrows the field down to 2. 67 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Luminescence Foundation. Luminescence Foundation is dedicated to shedding light on neurological research focused on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases and supporting land conservation initiatives. This is NPR.
Listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting up in Springfield here live from NEPM's Star Studio. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of programming notes. Today at 1 o'clock, we're going to be joined here in Springfield by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Joy Campbell. We're going to be back in Boston at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Harvard's Juliette Kayyem, Carol Rose from the ACLU, and author Sy Montgomery, who has a new book about this huge snapping turtle, which Jim and I think quite courageously got to pet a few months ago.
150 pounds.
150 pounds.
Yep.
It's a very, very big day for us, Jim. Okay, hello.
Okay, hello to you too, Marjorie. Starts the show this morning with CNN's chief national correspondent, John King. John, of course, is the man behind the great reporting project All Over the Map. John, good to talk to you.
Happy Tuesday. He's also a Dorchester kid. Jealous. You're getting to hang out with sea turtles. That's pretty cool.
I know. It was pretty great. It was enormous.
It's a snapping turtle.
Snapping turtle. That's right. We petted it on the rear end. You know, we didn't want to get anywhere near the mouth. But anyway, John, Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is going to be in court at some point today. What do we know about him so far, and what might we expect to find out today?
Obviously, when you have a preliminary hearing in court, you do tend to hear more of the evidence, or at least the connected dots from prosecutors. And you've heard some statements from federal officials, but this will be in the state courts in Utah, where you have the state attorney general presenting the charges, and then you'll have usually some evidence to ask the judge to continue to hold him without bail. And I think you also have, in addition, as the legal proceeding gets forward, and it's very important, prosecutors, this is their first test in a courtroom, really, to say we have probable cause, that he is the suspect, that we believe we have the evidence that he is the killer, the murderer here, and then to hold him. So we'll watch the evidence train plays out, and then around it, as you both know, there's a bigger debate too about speech, and I think you see a very different tone between some people in Washington, including the President of the United States, and say the Utah Republican governor, who's also a very conservative person, but has asked people to try stake out more of a middle ground, I guess I would say, than the president.
I love the expression that Spencer Cox uses regularly, the Utah governor: disagree better.
Yeah.
And several people who are going out of their way to ensure we don't disagree better are not just Donald Trump, but J.D. Vance yesterday filling in for Kirk on his podcast, Stephen Miller the same, going out of their way to blame the radical left, the far left, etc. They're now going to investigate liberal organizations, maybe use RICO statutes to go after them, that sort of thing. I don't quite understand why the Trump-Vance axis, John, has not decided this might be the one moment where they pretend they care about unity, and then they can return to their corner in a week or 2 weeks. What am I missing here?
It's just never been their calling card. Vice President Vance, relatively new on the national scene, but he has largely been an echo, and in some cases even an attack dog for Donald Trump on these issues. Jim and Marjorie, the President of the United States just moments ago was asked a question by an ABC reporter who was asking about Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying she wants to look at these groups. Forgive me, let me choose my words carefully, which I think is the test of the moment. She wants to look at some of these groups on the left that she thinks might be espousing hate speech. And the President of the United States' response to that question, which is a pretty fair, pretty normal, pretty in the news cycle question, said that there was a lot of hate in the ABC reporter's tone and in the voice. And maybe that reporter needs to be investigated for hate speech. So that is the moment we are in. There is an opportunity here A horrible thing happened. I don't care whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're independent, whether you're engaged with politics or not. A horrible thing happened. A young man was snuffed out. Yes, Charlie Kirk said a lot of controversial things. Yes, those are subject to fair debate in the public space. Like you quoted the Utah governor, let's get better at disagreeing. Let's learn how to disagree better, learn how to debate things. But this is a horrible, tragic moment. Another example of rawness and visceral anger and hate in our politics and in our bloodstream, really. And it is a moment of potential unity, but it's pretty one-sided what we've heard so far from the President of the United States and his team.
You know, John, we've both mentioned Spencer Cox, and we've talked about him the last couple of days as well since the killing, I guess, last Thursday. Are there other Spencer Coxes in high places since the assassination that we've been missing who have really gone out of their way to try to do a unifying kind of thing in this country who deserve some commendation?
Attention has largely been on the governor of Utah because this tragically happened in his state. But I do think, Jim, look, we are in September, getting closer to October, entering into the final year of a very important, critical midterm cycle, which is not only going to set the course for the second half of President Trump's term here, it's going to set the tone and the tenor for control of Congress. It's going to set the tone and the tenor and potentially give us on both sides new voices, new interesting people, new stars in both political parties. So Spencer Cox, I haven't seen any others at the moment. That doesn't mean they're not out there. I've been traveling and doing some stuff too. But he obviously, the governor of Utah, Mr. Cox, has gotten a ton of attention because this happened there. But I do think we're in a moment where we're going to see this debate play out. And we're going to have an opportunity to test people and to really, watch it and see if some interesting voices come forward on both sides.
So John King, Kash Patel, who runs the FBI, is up testifying on Capitol Hill. We just saw him on the 11 o'clock news. I get the sense he's in a little hot water, even with Donald Trump. What's going on?
The President of the United States said, I think it was last night, that he's fine. And Kash Patel did what Trump people do when they think they need to repair or at least get the president's attention, which he twice was on Fox News yesterday. Which is not normally what the FBI director is doing. The FBI director normally keeps a very low media profile, except for at major moments. What you're seeing so far, at least what I've read so far about the hearing up on Capitol Hill, has actually been quite predictable. There are several Republicans who privately and initially, Kash Patel at one point said that there was a suspect in custody. That was a subject in the investigation, a person of interest who was quickly released when it turned out that person had nothing to do with this. That's not the behavior of responsible law enforcement. And, you could give Kash Patel some grace. He's never done this before. However, we're 9 months into the administration, so there are a lot of people out there. You're just mentioning Juliette Kayyem on. Ask her about this. When you take that job, you take such a sensitive job, you have to learn to be careful. You have to learn to err on the side of caution, err on the side of silence, err on the side of waiting for double confirmation, triple confirmation, and more. So Dick Durbin, one of the Democrats on that committee, I believe he's the ranking Democrat of the committee, just told him he should shut up and let the professionals do their jobs. But the Republicans on the committee are largely in public coming to his defense. That's the world we live in right now. That doesn't mean that some of them privately and some of them publicly, right in the middle of all this, said they could be doing a better job. But when you get the spotlight on them at a hearing like this, welcome to our polarized world.
I remember several people making the comparison when Patel got on the plane and went cross country to be out there on the scene. Robert Mueller never came to Boston. He was the head of the FBI at the time of the Marathon bombing, when, of course, several people were killed and hundreds injured. I'm not even sure I knew who the head of the FBI was at the time of the Marathon bombing. So it was a totally different kind of way to run things. There was not TV appearances by Robert Mueller, nothing. And that's very different from what we're seeing now.
It is very different. And again, there are different management styles, and you could make an argument that in this age of social media and instantaneous communication and streaming and the like, that there's nothing wrong with the FBI director having a higher profile. The question is, what is that profile? And look, Kash Patel, when he was a congressional aide, when he was around the first Trump administration, and during the campaign when Joe Biden was president, is one of a pattern of people in the MAGA movement who rush to judge, right? They just give instantaneous judgments about people and about events. And then often the facts turn out to be quite different from what they say. He could do that. You can do that in a political campaign and get away with it, I guess. I don't view it as the most responsible behavior in the world. But he's the director of the FBI right now. And you can't judge first, prove later. That's not the way that job works, or at least that's not the way that job has worked. But we are in a very different place with this administration. And when you get these high-profile cases, whether they're policy tests, whether they're immigration raids, whether they're court challenges, and now a horrible tragedy, this is when you see people in the public spotlight and you watch them get tested, and you learn a lot about who they are and how they do things.
You know, we should point out he was one of the biggest cheerleaders for releasing the Epstein files
before
Donald Trump became the president of the United States. And obviously...
So was Bongino, is number two.
So is Van Bondi, the Attorney General.
The point I'm making, they rushed to judge, right? There's horrible things in there about other people, and we're going to get them out there.
Yeah.
Talking to CNN's John King. John, yesterday we spoke to Congressman Jim McGovern, who described himself when Marjorie asked him about the possible shutdown at the end of the month, that he's not a cheap date, was what Congressman McGovern said, meaning he's got some demands around health care, around the Obama subsidies, around the Medicaid, the deep Medicaid cuts that we're going to talk to, SNAP cuts that we're going to talk to Michael Curry about in the noon hour. We're only 2 weeks away from this thing. It seems that a lot of Democrats intend to take a firm stand, not only because they think it's the right thing to do, but because Schumer, when he didn't, the Senate leader the last time around, was took a lot of crap from rank and file Democrats. Where's this thing heading in your estimation?
I don't think we're going to know for certain until we get right to the very end, because these things go right to the very end. But Congressman McGovern is very plugged in to the House Democratic caucus. You're absolutely right that Democrats are getting a lot of pressure from their voters, and it's not just the most liberal base. A lot of pressure from all of their voters to fight more, to try to do more to stop things. A lot of them also have a visceral opposition to closing down the government, because they're the party of government. They're the party that believes government should be doing good things for people. But they are at deep loggerheads here with President Trump, and I do think the last time it was clear what was going to happen. The Democrats were going to cut the best deal they could get. I'm not sure that's true this time. The Democrats do, again, every day we speak, we get closer to a midterm election cycle in which, especially on the House, it is on this day, you would have to say it's likely Democrats get the House back. What's the one thing that could ruin that? Alienating your voters, taking away Democratic enthusiasm to fight Trump in the midterm elections by having Democrats think that you're not fighting yourself. So I do think it is more likely at the moment that Democrats are going to withhold their votes unless they get an acceptable deal, and there's no evidence at the moment. Let's focus on Speaker Johnson in the House, is ready to give you a plan that meets Congressman McGovern's test. We'll see where we get in a week or two, but not today.
We've heard of a lot of uneasiness in Congress, security-wise, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and House speakers talked about more money to protect members of the House. Is that happening?
They're having a conversation about it, and that's actually become another negotiating point as the Republicans try to come up with their own plan. Before the Republicans can negotiate with the Democrats, they look how hard. I don't mean this the way it sounds, but set the Democrats aside for a minute. Forget about them for just a minute. They'll be critical at the end, but we're not at the end yet. Every time we've been through this in this new Trump term, and even in the prior terms when Biden was president, Republicans trying to figure out what can we vote for. We'll put it now. They govern. They have the presidency, they have the House, they have the Senate, and Speaker Johnson has a 2 or 3 seat majority. And every time one of these big things come up, his job hangs in the balance, and the Republicans have a huge fight over what to do. Security funding is now one of the pieces of that, and I think there's broad support for it. But there are people in that conference, principled people, you can agree or disagree with them, who say every time we're going to spend new money, I want to cut it somewhere else because I'm not adding more money to the deficit, which they've done quite well at, by the way. The conservative Republican Party has added a lot to the deficit. So that will be a piece of it, and I think there's bipartisan support for it, but it complicates the math. Anytime you spend, it complicates the math.
John, before you go, let's end on an up note. I know this is perverse, but when the Miami Dolphins scored the winning touchdown against the Patriots on Sunday, and the replay showed that the guy who scored the touchdown stepped out of bounds, you're the person I thought of at that particular moment. So how happy were you at that moment, John King?
Because I would have stumbled out of bounds too. Balance is an issue. Look, it was an ugly W, but a W is a W in the books, and they're going to struggle to get wins. So, they've had a lot of bad luck, so I'll take some good luck. Thank you very much.
So are we. Hey, John, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, John.
I really appreciate it. John King.
We have been speaking with John King, Chief National Correspondent for CNN, and we thank him very much for his time. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on the growing calls to unplug, to get off social media, to slow down. to smell the roses, touch the grass. Jim is laughing at me already.
I've done a lot of grass touching in my time, Margie. Let me just tell you.
We're going to do that because it's pretty tough times in the United States of America today and all around the world. So I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, live from NEPM Star Studio and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Are you a rose smeller, a grass toucher? If not, you're thinking about it. That's next on Boston Public Radio.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, singer-songwriter Mary Gauthier. She turns raw truth into song. From her breakout album, Mercy Now, to her Grammy-nominated Rifles and Rosary Beads, she shows how music can carry both struggle and healing. Plus, Emerson College's American Comedy Archives is where punchlines get preserved. Comedian Eddie Brill joins us to talk about the latest comedians to join the annals of comedy. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Moderna. mNEXSpike COVID-19 vaccine mRNA by Moderna is available. More information about mNEXSpike is available from pharmacists and medical providers.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We should have mentioned that while we're in Springfield, the show is aired by NEPM all 3 hours, not just the first hour like ordinarily.
That's right.
We're thrilled, and we thank them for that. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder. We're live from NEPM's Star Studio in Springfield. They have great coffee mugs, too. We're video streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. At 1 o'clock today, Andrea Joy Campbell, the Attorney General of Commonwealth, is going to join us in studio in Springfield for an hour of Ask the AG, taking your questions and ours. Back in Boston tomorrow at the Library, Harvard's Juliette Kayyem, Cara Rose from the Civil Liberties Union, author Sy Montgomery's got a new book on snapping turtles, Fire Chief in particular, 150 pounds. We were hanging out with Fire Chief up there in New Hampshire a bunch of months ago. September 23rd at the library, Mayor Wu joins us for an hour. September 30th at the library, the governor joins us for an hour. But for right now, we wanted to offer a few minutes of, I guess, reflection. The news cycle never ends. It's easy to get sucked into the worst, most divisive aspects of the internet. On social media especially, falsehoods fly with ease, warp all of our sense of reality. We're seeing, and I would argue, far worse than I've ever remember in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's killing and in what we know about the suspected killer. Here's Utah Governor Spencer Cox, we just spoke to John King about him, on Meet the Press saying that social media played a direct role in political violence.
I believe that social media has played a direct role in every single assassination and assassination attempt that we have seen over the last 5-6 years. There is no question in my mind that cancer probably isn't a strong enough word. What we have done, especially to our kids, it took us a decade to realize how evil these algorithms are.
I don't know if it played a role in every single assassination and assassination attempt, but basically is right. It is out of control. All the evidence shows prolonged time on social media is bad for you. Again, particularly now, I'd argue, and experts recommend cutting back, not just for kids, by the way, but for everybody. So we wanted to take a couple of minutes asking you how and whether you're tuning out and staying grounded. How are you taking time to connect with yourself, your community, your priorities at a time when it's so easy to get distracted, fall down a rabbit hole, or otherwise lose yourself in the pace and psychosis of our current political moment? Are you unplugging? Or you not? Call us or text us at 877-301-8970. I spend an unhealthy amount of time on social media. You responsibly do not, and I can attest to the fact I have never, I know I have a little hyperbole in me generally, but I mean this, I have never seen it worse on both sides than since Kirk was killed last week. The viciousness, the venom, the threats are absolutely not only horrible, but mind-numbing and crushing in ways. And so usually I don't buy this BS. You got to withdraw. You got to, commune with nature. I have to say now I sort of feel it's a pretty good time to take a little bit of a break. Not totally, not ignore the news, but take a little bit of a break.
Well, I mean, I love my job. I'm really grateful to have it. But I did notice this summer we did something we haven't usually done, which is take 2 weeks vacation in a row. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't spending 3 hours a day reading about Donald Trump and politics and what was going on. And I did notice my mood improved tremendously. I think a lot of people feel really, really beaten down by the news because they feel they're looking for an escape and they don't really see how they're going to escape from it.
Can I not disagree, but make a distinction? I am not as much of an advocate as you are about taking a break from the news, and I'm not even sure you are, but I understand.
I'm not doing it obviously because this is what I do for a living.
No. But I mean for real people who don't do what we do for. I'm talking about the social media aspect of this, which for the most part is not news. It is commentary, and I use the term loosely on news, which is dangerous and divisive. And by the way, often one of the things we do for whatever we occasionally make a mistake on the air. We try to correct it as quickly as we possibly.
I make many mistakes.
No, you don't. You make some mistakes. I make some mistakes. But we are really committed. This is not intended to be a joke. Really committed to correcting them, and our team is wonderful about it as quickly as we do. You have to. Everything you see is so divisive, so extreme. You got to double check and triple check everything. It is debilitating. Well, and so I'm not suggesting so much a break from the news. I'm suggesting a break from the social media alleged analysis of the news.
I guess I would ask people what they think they get from it, because so much of what's in social media is wrong. So you have to spend an awful lot of time fact checking to make sure what you're getting.
You got to feel where the population is. That's what I think.
Well, you can feel where the population is. I guess that's good. Maybe I don't want to feel that much about where the population is, but I think that's what you get from it, because there's a real addictive quality to it.
Yeah, there is.
And I wonder if people feel like they wish they could escape from it, and they're just kind of drawn back to it.
Let me just say one interesting thing, by the way, and I don't think this falls into the extreme category, because I agree with most of what he said. The Reverend who's leading the Drudge Report today, who is pretty critical of Charlie Kirk and saying some of the things we said, but much more effectively than we said them the last couple of days, about how you shouldn't shy away from criticizing how he behaved in life, even if you mourn his death. I can't tell you how much of social media incorporates him, some praising him and some threatening him in the most vile kinds of ways. So the question is, are you taking a break from social media? Would you like to? And by the way, Marjorie made a joke about me touching the grass. An anonymous texter says, Marjorie has touched a lot of grass too, if you know what I mean. It's just a
That's a good one.
Different kind.
Just one last thing. Maybe it isn't a direct analogy, but we're staying at the MGM casino in Springfield.
Not in the casino, but in the hotel.
No, we're not in the casino. We're not staying in front of a slot machine. But we walk through the casino to get to the hotel, and you walk through that casino, and the beginning to the end, and I feel like I'm bombarded with lights and flashing and colors and all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of how I feel about social media, is that you're bombarded, and it's not a good feeling. I don't think.
It was a good break for him. A lot of people are texting saying, I can't believe we have to wait so long to hear what you thought of the Big E. We're going to do that at 12:30, not only with a colleague here who led us, the head of the Big E. The big boss is going to be there, one of the vendors. We're going to talk a lot about it a little bit later in the show, but for right now, we're talking about taking a break. If you're doing it, if it's been good for you, if you can't take a break because of how addictive everything is, 877-301-8970.
Listen to this one. Good morning. I stop to smell the roses every day. I notice acorns being dropped by squirrels. I hear falling leaves and listen to the birds to try to figure out what they are saying. She uses the Merlin ID, I guess. This political climate is weighing heavily on me. There you go. There's somebody who's smelling the roses.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. Alan, you're in Peabody. You're first on BPR, on NEPM, and GBH. Hi.
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 So I found the social media stuff was getting overwhelming, and I knew I needed to get a break. So what I did is I found out about the New England Shop Hop, which you get a passport and you go to visit all these little local shops across New England, and you get your passport stamped. And it's to visit quilting shops or small fabric stores. Oh. And I have been having an absolutely wonderful time meeting wonderful people, and it doesn't matter to me what their political affiliation is or what they think about anything, because it's just looking at fabrics and saying hi and talking about the local area and getting little gifts. And every store has a bunny, because it's called a shop hop, that's hidden, and you're supposed to find it, and then you can enter a contest. And it's been a blast.
Listen to all the happiness in Ellen's voice, by the way.
What's it called again, Ellen?
Shop hop.
Shop hop.
It's called the New England Shop Hop. And it takes you all over New England, which is great because I wouldn't go to these little towns otherwise. So it's been fabulous.
Hey, Ellen, that was great. By the way, you know what that reminds me of? I don't know if it was Jamie or Zoe said yesterday at the Big E as we were leaving after several hours. No pro-Trump, no anti-Trump.
Yeah.
No, it was a total respite from all the crap that we are surrounded by 24 hours a day. 877-301-8970.
Here's Betty in Nashua. I deactivated Facebook in February. I'm never going back. People I once admired made it a cesspool of hate, racism, and routinely spread disinformation. I removed those people from my physical life as well. My mental health is much better. We have several people who are talking about getting off Facebook. But it's just, not just Facebook. Obviously, it's the whole
everything. By the way, I can't believe you didn't read this one because you were talking about your 2-week respite when you're on vacation.
I saw it, Jim.
Marge, your mood improved because you're away from Jim for 2 weeks. Let's go to, I can't read this. Is it Evie in Dover? What's the name? Is it Evie?
I think it's EM.
EM. Oh, I'm sorry, Em.
M in Dover.
My apologies.
Hi, Em.
Hi, Em.
That's okay. So I have a profession that is just exuberates with de-stressing. I'm a yoga teacher.
Oh.
And I just finished teaching a yoga class. And where I teach Thursday nights, the JCC in Newton, I have a very large restorative class that keeps getting larger because of stress.
You're serious, but wait, that's a serious comment, right?
Yeah.
The numbers are increasing?
Yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I'm a big yoga fan. I love yoga, and I it's so true. By the end of a yoga class, I am so limber and so exhausted. Totally
How's your head
de-stressed.
at the end of a yoga class?
It's great. It's a big. I used to be a runner. I can't run anymore for a bunch of reasons, and yoga has been a great respite for me. Great.
And we're all about mind body, and I emphasize do it to de-stress. Really.
How do you?
And there's nothing more joyful than my students.
And how do you handle it? Does that do it for you as well as the person?
After I teach and I see everybody smiling faces and give hugs, awesome.
That's fabulous. I'm glad you called. Thank you so much. 877-301-8970. We're talking, based on some comments from Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, we're talking about whether people are taking his implied advice and saying step back from social media, which is, if you just tuned in, at least my unscientific analysis is it is more vitriolic and divisive than I've ever seen it.
Dan said things are so bad he had to watch 4 hours of NCIS last night.
Is that your show? What's the one you watch with
Law
your daughter?
Law and Order SVU. It's terrible.
Okay.
I'm flipping through the thing at the hotel last night, and I came across Law and Order SVU. I thought, well, do I want to watch CNN or do I want to watch Law and Order SVU? It was a tough decision, Jim.
Well, it must have been a great night for you, huh?
It was. I was swinging. I was swinging from the chandeliers.
Let's go to Mark. He's calling from the Mass Pike. Hey.
Hi. Yeah, I definitely am a bit of an NPR news junkie, and I just can't. I mean, it's weird. It's like I can only check in the mornings, and then on social media, I have a habit of doom scrolling. But I have parts of the day where I just don't look because I would go totally loony if I did it.
Is that like really? Is that like a conscious decision, or you're just too busy? Do you literally say, "I got to take a break for"? Go ahead.
I've never actually said I got to take a break from it, but I find like when I'm going out for I do long walks and runs.
Yeah.
And I just turn off everything and just when I'm walking I sometimes would listen to the news or I'd listen to whatever and but I just turn it off and I just have to walk away and it's like I just have to get away from it. But that said, when I come home I still doom scroll, so my brain's a little nuts.
Mark, thanks for calling.
Listen to this one. It's very hard for me because my job is polarized. There are people who rejoiced when Charlie Kirk was shot, and I didn't even realize who he was. There are people who were ticked off, that's not the phrase you used, who absolutely thought he was the best and super person. And then she talked about getting the links to the story. Oh, this is a guy, Joey. I'm sorry, Joey. This is a guy who said they got links to their side of the story from he'd got from different people, and he said all the comments and the links seem designed to tick off the other side and make everybody angry. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons Fox News is so successful, because it gets you riled up. It's like anger and resentment, and it just builds up and builds up and builds up.
Do you want to feel really good? Our team,
yes.
I think, in deference to you, decided to get a little sound from Law and Order.
Oh,
so
thank
that
you.
Your spirits can be lifted. Let's hear it.
It's
all you need.
It's great.
What more do you need than that?
The whole thing is solved within the hour, you know.
It's a beautiful
you get the crime
thing.
in the first 10 minutes, then they have a bunch of suspects. They're always the wrong suspects. Then they get the one that's a real
Love
suspect.
that.
Then they go to court, and everything is great, and it all works out in the end. Sometimes
Wow.
it doesn't work out in the end, but it's close.
Sort of
It's
not like life.
Sort of not like life. That's why it's so satisfying. That's right. All wrapped up in an hour.
877-301-8897. Did you read the piece, by the way? I didn't know if he was being facetious. Dana Milbank, who's a really good writer in the Washington Post, did you read his piece talking about communing with nature?
I know.
And, I mean, it was
a little
so much, wasn't it? I mean,
it was
really?
it was a little too much for me. Going out in the
Really?
field of hay and grass.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing that.
Although I told you, I went on the Minuteman Trail. I've never been on the Minuteman Trail in my whole life last weekend. That was very soothing.
What'd you do exactly? What'd you do?
Until I saw like 6 police cars, and then I thought...
Is that true?
Yeah, there were
Why
6
were there police cars?
Well, supposedly...
Explain what the Minuteman Trail is for people in
the
Western
Minuteman Trail
Mass.
is a place in Arlington and Lexington that you go, and there's a lot of bikers and joggers and stuff, people with baby carriages, and you're just walking along through... Mostly you have trees on either side. Sometimes you go across, and there's like a stream or a pond or a little playground. It's really, really pretty.
What
and there are all
prompted you
these
to do that? Why'd you do
because I
that?
was up visiting my daughter. We decided
Oh.
to take the little children for a walk. Little children are also great de-stressors. You know what I mean? They're so happy.
Well, they're also great stressors. I mean,
Well,
you're
they are
the
great
grandmother
stressors.
and
Yeah,
all
that's
that.
right. I came
You know,
home
I should have
collapsed.
said when Em was on the phone, I was thinking of doing yoga. Yeah, I know you love yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I was just worried when I got down, I could never get up. And so, and no, I mean, if people weren't going to help me, I'd be stuck there. I've fallen. I can't get up. What was I going to do?
Yeah,
I mean, you know?
yeah, that's true, Jim.
Well, you don't have to say it's true.
Okay,
But
I'm sorry.
Bill calling
It's not
from
true.
Chelmsford, you are next. Thanks so much for your call, Bill. We appreciate it. Hi.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're good.
First, can I make a comment? I think GBH needs to put you guys on the air across the country. That way, we'll get some opinions and some feedback from the rest of this crazy country of ours. I really enjoy listening to you guys.
That is very kind to you, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And I mean that sincerely.
Thanks.
But this thing about getting on social media, I don't do a lot of it. But here's my fear. Those of us that would step back, who won't use it evilly or negatively, are going to stay on it, while the rest of us who are trying to do good get off it. And it's kind of like when Nancy Pelosi's husband was told to drop whatever he was holding, and the guy was told to drop whatever he was holding, and Pelosi did what he was told, and the other guy didn't, and then he hit him. And I just think we need to think about that. I mean, it's a sad situation we're in, but I think we have to stay on social media for no other reason than to try and see what the other side is doing and planning. You know, it's scary right now. I don't know what the answer is, but this murder was not appropriate, and the response is not appropriate from the leader of the free world. That's just how I feel.
Well said,
Bill,
and thanks
thank
for your
you.
kindness,
Yeah.
Bill. We really appreciate it.
You know, Jessica in Centerville makes a very good point that a lot of social media, the algorithms lead you to black and white thinking and very little place for nuance. And that is a great point. It seems like we have trouble holding two things together. You know, the world is full of paradox, and we can't seem to deal with paradox.
But I'd throw your Fox News back at you. If there was nuance, Fox News would have no ratings. I'm not defending it, but it is the lack of nuance, the absence of nuance that gets clicks. It's absence of nuance that gets eyeballs on the screen.
Because those things, we're drawn like moths to the flame, to use a cliche, to fear and anger and resentment.
Aren't you?
No, I don't watch Fox News.
No, I don't mean Fox News, but I mean, doesn't that draw more of your attention than nuance does, even though intellectually all of us hopefully would agree that everything is nuanced? No?
I like to think I live in a nuanced space, Jim.
You know why?
Why?
Because you watch Law and Order SVU. What does SVU stand? I don't even know what it stands for.
Oh, it's terrible.
What is it?
Sexual Victims Unit.
No, it is?
Yes, it's the worst possible
And that's your
thing to
favorite
watch.
show?
It's about children. It's terrible. It's terrible. But it is addictive. John, what's the guy's name? John Mulaney, the comedian. He talks about
fabulous.
how you can be sitting there on a gorgeous day. It's like 70 degrees out. It's beautiful, and suddenly you're in your apartment. You watch 9 hours of Law and Order SVU. What is wrong?
What's
with
the
this
most
picture?
number of episodes in a row you and your kid have watched?
My daughter and I once watched about 6 hours.
Is that really
It
true?
was really bad. At least it was nighttime and it was wintertime, but it's terrible. But it's been on forever. Hasn't been on Law and Order's
You know how many I've seen?
25 years old? What?
None.
Well, I'm telling you, you're missing out, Jim.
I
You're
never
missing
knew
out.
SVU meant those.
And get sucked right in.
That's beautiful. Ellen in a truck. What's up?
Hey, it's the pecan lady and horseback riding lady.
Oh,
How are
great.
ya?
How are you, Ellen? Good to talk to you. What's up?
So I was ordered by my counselor to unplug because I would talk too much about politics.
There you go.
And so I'd normally, stream and be weeding in the garden, and because I grow stuff for a pantry, and I don't do that as much. I do my movie therapy, so I go to movies and often, get away in the dark and enjoy something good. But it has been really stressful, and I feel really bad for the man and his family, Mr. Charlie Kirk there, but you know what? He wasn't a perfect person, but nobody is. And you don't attack people when they die. I mean, that's a horrible thing. And I won't go on a lot of Facebook. I have really backed away. So I am not listening. I mean, I listen to the news because it's important to be involved, but I hear everything you're saying. Plus, I agree with Bill. You should have a national.
Okay, that's really sweet. Hey, can we get back? Thank you for that, Ellen. Thanks, Bill, for that. Getting back to what you said, are you serious when you said your therapist or your advisor, whatever you call the person?
I think a lot of therapists tell people
told you
My counselor.
Yeah.
Yes, she said, you've got to get away from some of this. You've got to take a break.
That's
because I was so upset one day. I was in tears about some stuff that was said, and she said, "Oh, Ellen, I know you care about all of this, but you've got to take a mental health break."
Well,
Ellen, thanks for the call. That was great.
Many people have said, I've said it, so why not say it again, that it used to be that the president was elected and you didn't think about the president, whether he was the person you voted for or not, for days, if not weeks. You have a president now who kind of lives in your head. You know what I mean? He takes up, and I think a lot of people resent the real estate he's taken over in their brains, and they want to get away from it.
Okay, can we spend 1 minute on a very important topic before we take a break? One, we learned yesterday was not the big A, it was the big
That's right.
E. Is
I said
that correct?
wrong.
Okay. Now, let me tell you something else. This is amazing. How many hours of Law & Order SVU have you watched in your life, would you say?
I don't know, Jim. I'm embarrassed
Hundreds,
to say.
right?
Maybe it could be triple digits.
Okay, triple digits.
Mm-hmm.
You told me before SVU stood for Sexual Victims Unit. Unfortunately, it's
Special
Victims Unit.
That is correct. Okay, I'm wrong again. Special Victims Unit. But they're
Okay.
children who have been sexually assaulted is what it mostly, or murdered. Yeah. It's really uplifting stuff. Why am I listening to this? That is an excellent question. I'll have to take it up with
You know
my
what I said, by the way,
therapist.
one of the things that if for people who, and I assume it's a minority, when we had Marianne Leone on a couple of weeks ago with a great new book, who played Christopher's mother in The Sopranos, I watched the whole thing. Admittedly, I didn't admit this to her. I did it at 1.25 and 1.5 speed, which I know is totally sacrilegious kind of thing. I watched the whole Sopranos thing from beginning to end while I was on vacation, and it talk about respite from the sickness that is around. It's really
I think seeing people being dismembered and their heads shot off and right at long range, and everybody getting beat to the smithereens, and women crawling on the ground to get away from their murderers. I think that's very uplifting, Jim.
You mean unlike a Law and Order SVU, which is really. Thank you very much for the sound effect.
I'm getting all excited hearing that sound.
Okay,
we're done with this. Coming up after this quick break, the Wildflower Alliance runs a group of peer respite homes here in Western Massachusetts for gay and trans people. Two of the home's directors join us next. Ephraim at Akiva and Tokyo Baldwin to talk about the importance of harm reduction in mental health care. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from NEPM Star Studio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
In decades past, gambling addiction was a big problem in Norway, so the government there imposed strict regulations on the gambling industry.
So if it gets really bad, you will not have so severe consequences that you cannot carry on with your life.
How Norway addressed gambling addiction. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston Lyric Opera, presenting Verdi's Macbeth. Power, prophecy, and paranoia arise as an ambitious couple claws their way to the throne. October 10th and 12th at Emerson Colonial Theater. Tickets at blo.org. And Addison Gallery of American Art, with 6 new exhibitions this fall, including the work of photographer Tommy Kaw and African-American landscape painters, the Florida Highwaymen. Opening reception Saturday the 20th. addisongallery.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Bradley. We're live from NEPM Star Studio in Springfield, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. 1 o'clock to 2 today, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, is joining us in Springfield in the studio here to take our questions and yours about a whole host of things. We are back at the library tomorrow, at the library on the 23rd. Mayor Wu joins us for an hour on the 30th. The governor joins us for an hour. Across the country, there are fewer than 40 programs offering peer respite, non-clinical alternative to inpatient mental health treatment, and just one in the entire country run exclusively by and for trans and queer people. The Peer Respite Home, Anemone, which opened this year in Holyoke, is run by Ephraim Akiva, who joins us now in the NEPM Star Studio, along with his colleague Tokyo Baldwin, runs another peer respite home, Akiva, in Northampton. I got them both right, luckily. They both operate these homes under the Wildflower Alliance, a Western Mass-based national peer support and training organization that has been internationally recognized for its work. Ephraim and Tokyo, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, yes. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. So we'll start with you, Ephraim. Elaborate on what Jim said. What is a peer respite home? What does that mean?
So a peer respite is a home in the community. It looks just like every other home. There's no signs or anything like that. And people can come there for a period of time. So we're short term. Akiva is a 7-night stay. Anemone is an up to 2-week stay. And so people can come there when they're going through a crisis in their lives. And it's an alternative to going to a psychiatric hospital or going into traditional mental health services.
And is that because there's hard to get into traditional mental health services, or because it's too expensive, or because you go in for 2 days and you get thrown out? I mean, is this an alternative in the sense that it's better, or just an alternative?
Do you want? I think it's just an alternative. I think better would be dependent upon the person that you ask or the person that's receiving that support, but definitely an alternative and just another way to do something that is more personable. It brings humanity back into the service and the support. So it's more about the person instead of the provider.
And also, I mean, when I read about this, and I'm embarrassed to say I knew very little, is here the lock is on the inside, which is pretty significant, as opposed to locked in a facility. There are no mandated drugs. As you say, it's a home. If you walk by on the street, you wouldn't know that it's any different from the neighbor house or the neighbor house. That's true, Ephraim, is it not?
It's absolutely true. And it functions in a lot of ways like a home too, I think.
Well, explain that. Let's flesh that out a little bit.
So if I'm having a hard time and I go into the hospital, first of all, I'm a trans and queer person, so I'm going to have to deal with transphobia and queerphobia and all of that.
Yep.
But I'm also going to be locked in there. I'm also going to lose access to my family, to my children, to my entire community. And we don't do that. People get to continue to work their jobs. They can continue to see their kids, do whatever it is they normally do.
Tokyo, is the need for this, in your estimation, I don't know if it's translated in real numbers yet, even greater when there's an administration that has decided to target some of the most vulnerable people on the planet, trans and queer people?
Oh, 100%.
Do you feel that? Do you see that?
Absolutely. People come to us and tell us about the disparity. And also we know, given the circumstances, that there has been funding reduced to shelters and the beds and the amount of people that they're actually covering right now. It's falling on us. We've been busy and we've been packed for the last 6 months straight.
So if people are listening to this and they are going through some kind of difficulty and struggle and they're trans or queer, how do they reach you? What do you do? Is it the website or what do they?
Yes, you can go straight on to wildfloweralliance.org and you will just go and find our Pure Respites and go to Anemone, and you can actually fill out a form right online and be able to have a time that you can talk with us about what's going on. And, you know, I will say that currently we do have space open on our wait list.
And do you have to pay for it?
No,
it's
completely free. We are
Absolutely.
supported by
That's-
the Department of Mental Health.
That's wonderful.
Of the state?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So why aren't there, this is another, I think I'm asking one naive question a day in Springfield, so I'm going to use up my share right here, Tokyo. Margie and I were talking about this. This is such an obviously good idea, and as you say, as an alternative. I mean, certain people need greater care or different level of care. Obviously, we all know that to be. So why aren't there more of these things around the country? Is there a bias against this kind of help? What's the deal, Tokyo?
It is not lucrative. We're not asking people for insurance. We're not asking people for IDs. We don't want any money from anybody. So it takes away from how much they're able to gain. These systems usually provide a lot of money when people stay.
How trained are the people who work in these things? If people do have a level of need that maybe is lower than, as we discussed, the locked mental health facility, how trained are you guys and other people with whom, do you call them, you don't call them patients, I'm sure.
No.
Guess?
We just call them people staying. So
Okay.
we would be people working, they'd be people staying.
Okay, so people
I like
staying.
that.
What level of training do the people working, is use your terminology, what do they have?
So I'm on the Wildflower Alliance training team, as is Tokyo, and so people are required in their first year of working with us to go through a training called Intentional Peer Support, which actually comes through Vermont, but we have a contract with them to be able to offer it locally. And they also have one called queer-specific intentional peer support, which is what the Anemone team went through. We also do hearing voices training, on an alternatives to suicide training, and an anti-oppression training. And all three of those last ones came in-house from Wildflower Alliance, and
Absolutely.
So without identifying anybody or giving identifying details, you must have a couple of stories that have made your day very heartening. You're smiling, Tokyo.
Absolutely.
So why don't you start? Give us a couple examples of how this has worked for some people.
So I guess I would say in the way of communication. So that mutuality piece. Sometimes people come from various walks of life. All the time people come from various walks of life. And to be able to sit and have a conversation with someone where you're not being judged, where you're not being labeled, that's invaluable.
Yeah.
To just be treated like a human and just have questions be asked, be curious. And that is a part of our training and our approach, is just to be curious. We have VC, so we're like vulnerability, community, validation, and curiosity. And so we use that in every interaction that we have with folks. We're curious. We ask questions. We want to know what has been going on for them. And that is so different than the stereotypical model of mental health.
Well, I would also think, as you said before, Ephraim, they're not dealing Ephraim, that they're not dealing with getting judged about being queer or being trans, that there's an understanding there that makes your approach much more appealing to people.
Yeah, so I do want to push back on something that Jim said, which is about a lower level of care. So actually, the people who come to stay with us, first of all, I want to say that it's anybody in community. We've had law enforcement stay with us at times. We've had social workers. We've had doctors. We've had all sorts of people in community come and stay with us. And a lot of that is about being able to maintain confidentiality. And I'll be honest with you that the clinical system often doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. And also that people are met where they're at. They can come in and they can talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to them and be met with compassion and non-judgment. And that is held. They're not going to be kept in the hospital for the next month, maybe more. They're just going to be able to work through the experience with other people who've been through similar stuff, and it makes a real difference.
How did you get involved, Ephraim, in this?
So actually, originally, I found the job posting on Craigslist, which is bizarre. But and I thought it was a magical made-up job. I was like, that doesn't really exist, but I applied anyway, and I didn't know that all of the worst things that you don't usually tell interviewers were the things that were going to make me the best at my job.
How about you, Toga? How did you get connected to this?
It was similar for me, but I actually came from a more medical model of mental health, and I was supervising folks that were dealing with substance use. So I wanted to see if there was a better way. I noticed a lot of things in my employment that I didn't agree with as a person, so I hoped that there was something more, and the posting that I saw was actually on Indeed, and they were offering that something more.
Well, you know what I was also thinking? You talked about the home setting before. So people are coming down, maybe making their coffee. Everybody's having dinner. They're cooking dinner. I mean, I would imagine your food is probably quite good because you are a small group making dinner together, I would assume.
Yeah, so we don't always cook for folks. We do allow folks are able to cook for themselves.
Yep.
We don't take that power from them. But sometimes we do it communally.
Yeah.
And we'll have barbecues and we'll cook and we'll have a big dinner where everyone will sit and eat together. And it is just like family. It's like you're in a home. And family is who you choose, right? It's not always about blood. So for us, we're family. While you're there, it's your home for those 7 days.
Ephraim, you mentioned that the money comes from Department of Mental Health and State. There's also legislation pending around this. What would that do that isn't currently being done?
Yeah, so the legislation would mean that we could have a traditional pure respite like Akiva in Northampton in every single county of the Commonwealth. And it is also asking we already have Anemone here in Hampden County. It's also asking for another trans and queer pure respite in Suffolk County and for 2 BIPOC pure respites on, each side of the state.
And this is Senate 1383 if people want to call their legislator and say, I support this or I have questions about it. Senate 1383 is the number.
Whose idea was this? How did this come up? How did this get put together?
So Akiva, the pure respite, was originally a bunch of folks in community called the Groundhogs actually got together, and the original idea was to have 5 pure respites in the state of Massachusetts, but it got boiled down to 1.
Okay.
And instead, that year, what was funded was the Worcester Recovery Hospital. And that one was Akiva, and that was the first in the state. Lucky number 13. And then Anemone is something that I could talk about more.
Tokyo, you're getting back to what you said before about, when I said, why aren't there more of these? Well, there's not a lot of people can't make a lot of money is essentially what you said. The flip side, though, is it seems to me, listening to the two of you, from the state's perspective, this is a huge money saver, is it not?
Yes.
So you would think, even if this is something that they would run to and try to expand as much as they possibly can. So we only have a minute left. What is going on at Beacon Hill? We say it's the place where good ideas go to die.
That's
Occasionally,
right.
a good thing. Is there progress on this front or no?
Absolutely. We're still going to the State House. We're still meeting with legislators. We're still having those conversations.
And you're getting a positive response?
We're getting a response. Some are in support. Some are in support. Others have varying views. But I think that overall it is positive, and it does look like there's light at the end of the
Great what you're doing. I'm really glad to meet you both. Lots of luck with your work.
Thank you both very much for coming in and
great.
telling people about this. We've been speaking with Ephraim Akiva, Senior Director of Peer Respite for the Wildflower Alliance. He also runs the Anemone House.
Got it.
Okay.
2 of us did it.
I'm challenged in pronunciations. And Tokyo Baldwin, the director of the Akiva House. Thank you again for coming in. Coming up after new news on 89.7 GBH, the Mass League Community Health Centers and the NAACP's Michael Curry zooms into the show. He's going to talk about reaction to Charlie Kirk and other things. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to VPR and GBH and NEPM live from NEPM Star Studio and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Johnson & Wales University, the College of Hospitality and Business, offers programs where service and commerce intersect, with an emphasis on career preparation. Learn more at jwu.edu. Step behind the scenes of Ken Burns' new film and meet the people who brought the story of the revolution to life. Watch The American Revolution, an inside look, tonight at 10:30 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR and NEPM live from Springfield, checking in with Mass League of Community Health Centers head Michael Curry about the latest efforts by the Trump administration to erase Black history and the dangers facing rural community health centers, including here in Western Massachusetts, in the wake of massive Medicaid cuts.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then, despite yesterday's fried food smorgasbord, we cannot get enough of the Big E, or, as I've been calling it, sorry, the Big A. We'll talk to ice cream vendor Joe Deedy, owner of Moolicious Farm, and NEPM's Elizabeth Roman. And we'll end the hour with Monty and Khalees from the fabulous 413. That's next on BPR, GBH, and NEPM, live from Springfield.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is defending FBI Director Kash Patel, who is currently being grilled on Capitol Hill over his handling of the investigation into conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination in Utah last week.
Take a look at what he did with respect to this horrible person that he just captured. He did it in 2 days. It took other similar cases 4 days, 5 days, 4 years, if you look at certain shooters. Now, I have confidence in everybody in the administration.
But critics are raising concerns about missteps they say the FBI directors made that could harm the prosecution of Kirk's alleged killer. Tyler Robinson is expected to be charged today. The president took reporters' questions as he was about to depart for the United Kingdom. It'll be his second state visit to Britain. King Charles III is expected to deploy tiara diplomacy at a time when the Trump administration's policies on tariffs and security, including over Ukraine's defense against Russia, have tested the UK's own policies. A UN panel of experts is accusing Israeli leaders of inciting genocide in Gaza. Israel has dismissed the report, which comes as it announces that a ground offensive in Gaza City is underway. Here's NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
The head of the Commission of Inquiry, which was set up by the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, laid out a long list of atrocities in Gaza. And Navi Pillay said the killings, the aid blockages, and forced displacement amount to genocide.
The Commission concluded that Israel has committed genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, and that it is continuing with that genocide.
Israel called the report libelous and accused Pillay and the other investigators of being proxies of Hamas. She says she wished the Israelis would cooperate or at least tell the commission where the report was wrong on the facts. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
One of Hollywood's most celebrated actors, Robert Redford, has died at the age of 89. His decades-long career included unforgettable performances in numerous films. NPR's Netta Ulaby has this remembrance.
Robert Redford was way more than one of the most handsome men in history. Here he is, melting Barbra Streisand in the film The Way We Were from 1973.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
Do you smile all the time?
No. No. No.
As an actor, Redford was more understated than his good looks would suggest. He transformed Hollywood's independent film scene with his Sundance Institute and Festival. And Robert Redford was a producer, director, and ardent environmentalist. Netta Ulaby, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. 1 week after firing Market Basket's chief executive, Arthur T. Demoulas, the supermarket's chain of board of directors has named an interim CEO. Earlier today, the three-member board of directors announced that longtime chief financial officer Donald Mulligan would now be the interim CEO. Multiple sources report that the move is the latest in an ongoing leadership battle that has inundated the 90-store chain, as well as its 30,000 employees, and that Mulligan's appointment is a sign that the board wants to provide some kind of stability after it decided to fire Demoulas. As federal ICE agents continue to flex their muscles in the Boston metro area, the Cambridge City Council is looking to develop resources to support immigrant residents. A unanimously approved order calls for a 24-hour hotline, increased interpreter services, a legal directory, and new internal protocols for interactions with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. The Crimson reports that the same holds true for the Alston-Brighton area, where 4 months after extensive sweeps by ICE agents in the two neighborhoods, city and nonprofit leaders have begun a coordinated effort to provide increased resources to immigrant constituents there as well. In sports, Red Sox and A's open a series tonight at Fenway, 6:45 start. The wild card race is underway. Sox are 1 game behind the Yankees in that race. Partly cloudy today, high in the low 70s, increasing clouds overnight tonight, low 51, sun clouds and low 70s tomorrow. 70 degrees right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, working to help protect small businesses and the owners that run them, offering customizable coverages to salons, accounting firms, tradespeople, and more. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
Welcome to hour number 2 of BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from NEPM Star Studio in Springfield, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. At 1 o'clock today, Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General, will join us. She's going to be right here in Springfield with us at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We'll be joined by Harvard's Juliette Kayyem, Carol Rose from the ACLU, author Sy Montgomery with a new book about snapping turtles. September 30th, we're going to be joined at the Boston Public Library by Governor Maura Healey, and September 23rd by the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hello again, Jim.
By the way, you and I petted that 150
we did.
snapping
It was
turtle.
very courageous of us, Jim.
Terrifying. Joined on Zoom by Michael Curry. Michael's the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. Hello there, Michael.
Hey, good morning.
You too.
Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us. So we haven't spoken to you since the murder of Charlie Kirk. I wonder what your reaction to that was and to the aftermath.
Yeah, I want to, and I think people have echoed this. A majority of people you've heard in government at every level, in community, have said that political violence is not the answer. And it is a tragedy when a father, a husband, is murdered for his words. As vile, as offensive, as racist as I think his words are, as they still extend beyond his death. And were when he was alive and going on college campuses. I was deeply disturbed by his messaging, but disturbed as well by his death. That being said, of course, people have weaponized it and immediately, which is interesting, from president on down, assumed that they knew who murdered him, and immediately went on an attack on so-called liberals, on the liberal left, the left killed him. And of course, that wasn't good sense. It wasn't good. It wasn't responsible. And of course, when you talk about bringing down the rhetoric, it was doing quite the opposite. It was actually mobilizing and organizing people to take action on their own against who they thought committed this violent attack. So I'm deeply disturbed. I think his words, unfortunately, are contrary to Christian values, are contrary to a nation that is one that accepts and embraces its history and its differences. I think as people unpack what he said about Black women, about slavery, about so many other things, unfortunately, we'll be debating this stuff for years to come.
You know, I have to correct you when you said a second ago, Michael, for a nation that embraces its history. A little later, we were going to talk to you about what's happening in the National Park Service based upon the desires of Donald Trump. They're actively involved in erasing a part of our history. He's been doing this for months now. Namely, any books or anything else about slavery is removed from National Park Service museums and gift shops.
Yeah, I mean, when I said that, I was thinking embraces the history it prefers, not the history that it should embrace.
Okay, go.
And I think Kirk was notorious. I have to say this one thing about Charlie Kirk, too. For any of us who debate, for any of us, and I got recruited to college to debate when I was coming out of Latin Academy to McAllister in St. Paul. I was talking to a good friend, Maurice, the other day, and a few others who are also debaters across country. We wish we had an opportunity to debate Charlie Kirk on a college campus, because the clips I've seen are really young people who've not fully understood history yet, who've not really mastered the data and the information yet. And he took advantage of those young people on college campuses by really shouting them down, or in some cases just dismissing them. But I wish he had an opportunity to debate more seasoned, I would call it, professionals, because his arguments were, quite frankly, non-factual, unfounded, and counter to everything we claim to be about as Americans.
There are a bunch of, if I just make quickly here, I was listening carefully to what you said, and this morning, having read about, I think, the only former full-time black columnist of the Washington Post, Karen Attia, who's been on our show, and the language that she posted she was fired for is not that much different from what you've been saying to us in the last couple of seconds. She criticized an action from a, quote, white America. It's not going to do what it needs to do, get rid of guns in our country. One post, she referenced what Kirk had to say about Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sheila Jackson. Sheila Jackson is a former congressperson in Texas, when Kirk said they didn't have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. One of her posts asserted the part of what keeps America so violent is the insistence that people perform care, empty goodness, and absolution for white men who espouse hatred and violence. Are those fireable offenses in your estimation, or is it the Washington Post yet again capitulating to the wishes of the President of the United States?
Absolutely, is the Washington Post capitulating. I think, it's interesting. We just spent the last several years under the Trump administration talking about cancel culture and opposition to cancel culture. And then we get President Trump and all of his supporters. And what do? They cancel. They actually do the opposite of what they criticize as being un-American to cancel culture. They criticize, and they do exactly what they claim made Charlie Kirk so phenomenal, that we could debate and disagree and have differing opinions. And then they were doing exactly what they said was being done to them. It's just disturbing. And of course, this is gaslighting. And most importantly, it's a contradiction. I find it, I was thinking about how I would describe this to a friend the other day. And I said, if you've ever been in a relationship where no matter what you said, the person was going to disagree with you, no matter how many facts or the truth or the conversation as it was said was not real, they're going to change the subject every time you bring up something they don't agree with. That's where we are as Americans right now. The truth doesn't matter anymore. The fact that this shooter that apparently killed Charlie Kirk wasn't the liberal-leaning guy from a liberal-leaning family as they thought, is now just skirted over. They moved on past that. This is what gaslighting is at its very essence. It makes you think you're crazy.
Michael Curry, given how you just described what Charlie Kirk had to say as being offensive and racist and vile, what did you make of the fact that so many governors, including our own governor here in Massachusetts, ceded to Trump's request that flags be lowered at half-mast in his honor, and the NFL having these moments of silence in his honor around the country?
It's interesting. First of all, I don't think any rational person who is honest with themselves, because I don't think there's a lot of honesty right now, could listen to any of these Charlie Kirk interviews and say this man is espousing and saying things that are so un-American and so offensive that I wonder if he were black. If he were a black nationalist, if he were saying some of the things, and fill in the blanks, right, from the Reverend Wright under Obama, fill in the names of who you might be offended by, this African American who says some things that you might find bigoted. And then imagine if Obama had decided, because he's dead, because he was assassinated, I want flags to go down. I want to give him a congressional medal or a presidential medal of honor. And imagine what they'd be saying right now about Obama. And I think what's interesting is, and I don't think they're necessarily equivalents, because I don't think what Reverend Wright said was the equivalent of what Charlie Kirk would say. But I say just the contradiction of Americans is that in this moment, this man who at least half of America, I know Black America in large part, finds that he was extremely offensive. And as he attacked Black women, now he chose to dig in on 3 Black women, prominent, brilliant Black women. But we know what that was dog whistle language for, which is that Black folks aren't as intelligent as white folks. That was what he meant. And he was playing on that. That's sort of yellow journalism. He know that was that was bait for his audience. So, I mean, again, Charlie Kirk should not be dead. He should not have been murdered. But we can have those both those conversations this morning.
So, given that it was a white man that allegedly killed Kirk, another white man, how do we get from there to all the racist attacks the day after the attack on Black colleges and universities, to the point where some of them actually went into lockdown and closed classes for the day? How do we go from A to B there?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the craziness of the moment we're in, to think that, I think people are, because there are some among us who really want to stoke racial violence and tension, and they want there to be a race war. I mean, this is a common conversation, and quite frankly, historically, as you've heard me say on the show, people play on this notion that they're coming to get us, our jobs, our education, our positions and institutions. And some people buy into that, right? That we know that we're very much can play that sort of race card using their words, and you can make it seem like somebody's coming to get them, then you can rile up that base. So to me, you got people calling HBCUs threatening to have a violent attack. My son goes to HBCU. My youngest son will probably go to HBCU. It is deeply disturbing that those institutions had to go on lockdown, to be in fear for their lives, as people use hateful words and violent political rhetoric, who are Republicans, who are then calling out others for using violent political rhetoric. It is a contradiction. It is, again, gaslighting.
You know, since you and Margie were talking about HBCUs, this may not be direct. Well, it is indirectly related. Just for a second, I've read a bunch of stories of late Michael Curry. We're talking to Michael Curry from the NAACP and the head of the League of Community Health Centers in Massachusetts, about how a lot of Black kids, maybe like your sons, are deciding to go to HBCUs because they're not making the kind of, I think, immoral compromises that so many other universities are in fear of Donald Trump. But the flip side is a lot of the HBCUs don't have the financial wherewithal to provide assistance that those capitulating private universities do. So it's sort of the student is caught in the middle. How does one address that issue? You want to go to a place where you feel safe and heard, but you don't have the dough to do it.
Yeah, I think it's even more complicated than that, Jim. I think, I spoke at a medical school class recently here in Massachusetts, and it was a predominantly white audience. And I was the keynote speaker for that morning, or one of the keynote speakers for that morning. And I said to the audience of mostly young, white, soon-to-be physicians, I said, I just want to tell you, you're not that special. You are brilliant, and you're here, and you're at a very prestigious medical school. But there's a lot of Black and brown kids who should be sitting here with you. Potentially one, as you've heard me say on the show before, who should be here because he or she was meant to find a cure for cancer, if we believe that all young people are talented and that we need to make sure there's a pathway for them to have their talent revealed. I say that to say this. I said to that audience that day, I said, but you know what separated you is that you went to the right elementary school that led to the right middle school, to the right high school, to the right college that put you in this university right now. And unfortunately, that pathway is not the same for Black and brown kids, particularly I'll talk African Americans. We're not at the most prestigious elementary schools that put you in the middle schools, the high schools that put you at Harvard, that put you to the top tier graduate programs. So I celebrate HBCUs. They are the biggest producers of the most successful Black talent in this country. However, the pipeline and pathway of historically white universities has been that major vehicle for others to have opportunity. Unfortunately, they're shutting that door, and it's creating this narrow pathway of HBCUs, to your point, Jim, with limited funding, to now become the place we go to get our education. Again, if you think that those white students on predominantly white campuses are more brilliant, smarter, they're more disciplined, shame on you. That is the essential definition of racism, is that you think a race of people deserves something over another race of people.
Talking to Michael Curry. Mike, can we switch to healthcare stuff? There's a really powerful and troubling piece on BUR put it out the other day. Rural healthcare clinics in Massachusetts brace for Medicaid cuts, and they focus actually on Community Health Center of Franklin County with locations out here in Greenfield, Orange, and Turner's Falls. And they talk about the impact of these massive Medicaid cuts, which we've discussed with you under the so-called big, beautiful bill, now big, beautiful law that Trump wants to call something else because nobody likes the big, beautiful bill or law. This is anticipatory, right? Because the bulk of the Medicaid cuts have yet to happen, but I assume a lot of your community health centers are already in the planning stages about what the impact will be. Is that what we're talking about here? And if that is the case, how deep are people planning for cuts to be?
So one is just a shout out to, because you're in Springfield, I want to shout out Tanya Barber at Caring Health Center, the phenomenal work that she and her team do at Caring Health Center. One of the things I love about Caring is it's a women power, right? She has an amazing team of women leaders who are leading one of the most successful health centers in the country. So that one, and then two, you mentioned Allison Vandervelde, the CEO of Community Health Center of Franklin County, was a part of that article you mentioned. We are deeply concerned as Medicaid cuts are looming, as we're likely to see 350,000 people in Massachusetts lose access to Medicaid coverage, and millions of them across the country lose access to coverage. We know that when people don't have coverage, and again, I tell your listeners, if they don't have coverage, they don't have that card in their pocket, what do they do when they have a headache or that pain in their side or their teeth or their eyes are failing? They do nothing because they can't afford it because they don't have insurance. So what you're doing is you force them to go without care until it's most acute, most dire, and then they show up in our emergency rooms. What Allison Vandervelde was talking about is that over 40% or up to 40% of her patients are on Medicaid. When you cut people off of Medicaid, you're cutting access to services, and you're crippling the financial system that drives our healthcare system. People will show up without the ability to pay, and unfortunately, we'll see higher rates of morbidity, mortality, and financial institutions in healthcare, healthcare institutions failing as a result of this one big bill.
You know, Michael, the legislature has reached an accord directing $234 million toward hospital and community health centers. How much will that help?
Yeah, so, I chair Rodericks in the Senate and Chair Michaelwitz in the House, and of course the Senate President and Speaker, and some phenomenal leaders in Massachusetts are just trying to step up and meet the moment. All of our healthcare systems are hurting, as Cindy Friedman, the chair of healthcare financing, says. We're in a crisis. We were in a crisis before the change in administrations and some of this policy shift with the one big bill. That being said, they just advanced some funding that should be able to help to support hospitals, health centers, as they're dealing with this financial crisis and the looming crisis So I'm just thankful, and I want to say personally thankful on air through you to the chairs of both Ways and Means and to the leadership, House and Senate, and the members of both the House and Senate, and hopefully ultimately to our governor for signing it when that happens. This is resources and support coming at the right time to support our healthcare system.
But is that, just to be clear, $234 million, and we join you since we never say a good thing about the legislature. I think we both join you in commending them for this. $234 million is not going to fill the hole that the federal cuts are creating, correct?
It won't. It won't at all. But what it'll do is buy us some time. It'll shore up where we are. We're actually doing things within the movement, within health centers and hospitals and others, to try to figure out how do we blunt some of the impact of this. These resources will help.
One last thing on healthcare, at least from me, Michael Curry, is I think we've discussed this with you before, but it's getting more intense in Massachusetts in the last few weeks. We have heard from Latinos and people talking about friends and neighbors who are Latinos not sending the kid to school, not going to work, not going to a healthcare appointment, not making a healthcare appointment for fear they're going to get grabbed. Are your community health centers experiencing that drop off in attendance for appointments and that sort of things now because of ICE, obviously?
Absolutely. I was just at a health center just last week who shared that they were seeing some drop in patient volume for that reason. Remember, we're across the state. We serve 98% of the zip codes in the Commonwealth. People are coming from Western Mass, North Shore, South Shore, every part, mid part of the state to get care at a health center. And if they can't trust that they can come in for them, for their children, for their families and get care because they're going to be stopped, whether they're documented or not, they're going to be harassed. That is disturbing. And of course, it is not good public health.
One last thing from me, Michael. I know you're not, you don't vote in Boston, but you've certainly been around Boston, worked in Boston for years and years and years. So
he was the head of the Boston NAACP when he's young and irresponsible, right?
Yeah, I heard he was very irresponsible. But anyway, Mayor Wu won a walloping victory last week in the primary elections over Josh Kraft, beat him by almost 50
I love that
points.
Adjective, by the way. That's
walloping?
Walloping is
yeah,
a good
it was big. What'd you make of it?
Well, one is I've had the fortune of being friends with Josh for the last several years. Josh and I've grabbed lunch. We've talked about a lot of different things. I think, anytime someone runs for office is a good thing, whether they're a billionaire or a common person with very few dollars coming from a community in Boston and they decide to run. I think all of that and all the in between, people should understand their civic responsibility. You've heard me say this before, and I just posted this on my social media again, which is if you're not at the table, you're on the table or you're on the menu. And it's important for people to feel the need, the desire to be at the table. So credit to Josh for wanting to be at the table, for their interests. The Boys and Girls Club, I know he serves with Rasant Hall, the Urban League at one point on their board. So he's done good work in community. But I will say this, and I will say it all the time. Mayor Wu has been phenomenal to me. And I don't mean for me. I mean in terms of the interests I care about. Now, it doesn't mean everything I'm happy with. But what I say about her, and I told her to her face, I said, Mayor Wu, you are who you hire. And she has hired some phenomenal young leaders of color in her administration that are pushing the needle in some great spaces like Shagun Idawu, who you both know. So to me, there's more work to be done. And congratulations to Mayor Wu on this next step towards potentially being reelected.
I have to say, Michael, before we say farewell today, what the conclusion I reached at the end of this conversation with Michael Curry? He's a far better person than we are. No, you really are. You are so much kinder to your fellow human beings than the two of us are in our little studio. So not all human beings, but some human beings. Michael, it's great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time.
Michael, thank you, as always.
Anytime.
Okay, we have been speaking with Michael Curry, who's the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers and also on the board of the National NAACP. And we thank him again, as always, for his time. Coming up after this quick break, in a past life, NEPM executive editor Elizabeth Roman lived at the Big E. That's right.
Literally
she was there
lived.
for days. You know, Jim has dreamed about eating his way through the Big E for days. We'll find out what Elizabeth discovered there after all those days. She joins us next to bring her Big E experience to us and to you. Plus, Joe Deedy, we met him yesterday.
He's fabulous.
Owner of Moo-licious Farm. We tried his Moo Nugs yesterday and a lot of other things at his ice cream place. Okay, we'll explain it all in just a minute. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from NEPM's gorgeous Star Studio, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Your home for trusted local news. GBH 89.7.
We know Boston. This is our home.
From Beacon Hill
to Dorchester and every neighborhood.
So when there's news you need to know,
we have the story. GBH News. Online at gbhnews.org. Streaming on the GBH app. And always on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And Central Square Theater with Silent Sky, the story of how Henrietta Leavitt, a human computer at Harvard in the early 1900s, changed astronomy. Silent Sky runs through October 5th. CentralSquareTheater.org.
Welcome back to BPR. I am Jim Browdy. Marjorie Egan is stuffing herself with a cream puff. We'll explain that in a couple of minutes. We're live from NEPM's Star Studio in Springfield, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. At 1 o'clock today, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, will join us in studio for Ask the AG. We're back in Boston at the library tomorrow with Harvard's Juliette Kayyem, Carol Rose from the ACLU, great naturalist and author Sy Montgomery. And on the 30th of this month at the library, Governor Healy will join us at the library for 30 minutes, for an hour of Ask the Governor. So yesterday, Margie and I made our inaugural visit to the Big E. We'll tell you all about that in a couple of minutes.
Great.
We're joined now by a woman who knows the Big E perhaps like no other. Elizabeth Roman is executive editor for the New England Public Media Newsroom. In her previous life as a reporter for the Springfield Republican, she lived at the fair for its 2-week run back in 2013. By the way, when I say lived at the fair, I mean lived at the fair for the 2-week run. And yesterday, she guided us through the fair itself, insisting we stop at Moo-licious Farm to try owner Joe Deedy's latest ice cream creation, the Moo Nug. We'll explain what that is in a minute. Joe Deedy joins us, too, because we simply couldn't explain the Moo Nug without him. Liz and Joe, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Us. Yeah, I never ate so much stuff yesterday that was delicious and fun. But let's start with you, Liz. We were gonna, we went there for the first time yesterday, the Big E. So tell people who haven't been why they should go.
Oh, the fair is everything. The Big E Fair is what you would consider a quintessential traditional fair. It's got every fried food that you can imagine: fried butter, fried Snickers bars, fried Reese's, my personal favorite. It's got agriculture, lots of little cute farm animals. I think you got to see some chicks yesterday.
The chicks coming out of their shells by the dozen. It was the most incredible thing I ever saw.
Yeah.
They're struggling to get out, and then they burst out and they can walk right away.
It's really, it's inspiring. It's inspiring. It's a journey to watch. And it's also vendors from all over the country that come, and you've got agricultural groups like 4-H groups that come. They show off their animals, and some of the kids, they bring cattle for sale, which is really hard for me to deal with, of course, but it's good for them to develop that skill. They have cattle shows, and people can, buy a whole cow and take it off. And take it home and have really good quality beef as well. So there's a lot of traditional elements about the fair, but also really the fun stuff too.
Marjorie and I are buying a whole cow on the way back.
Listen, it's a deal. It's a deal, and you're helping out some 4-H
Before
kids.
we get Joe involved in this conversation,
did you try to milk a cow yesterday, Jim? Didn't I see you?
No, I did not. Believe me, I did not.
There's an option to do that though. It's in the Farmerama building.
Oh,
if anyone
sorry, I
wants
missed
to do
out on that, Liz. Now, can you describe this living thing? I read some of the pieces you wrote as a younger journalist last night. Explain what this means. You literally lived at the damn fair.
Yeah, I lived there. I had this idea that I wanted to like stay in a tent over a weekend. I brought it to my editor, and he's like, "Absolutely not. You're like a young woman. You're not going to do that." They talked to the Big E, and the Big E said, "We'll provide a trailer for her." So it was like an actual RV. It had a little bed, a shower, everything. I would get up in the morning. I would go and have breakfast with some of the vendors. I'd walk the fairgrounds before they opened. I'd talk to some of the roadies that worked there, the carnival crew people. It was just an amazing experience to be there every day. Right? I wrote about it every single day. It was back in the day when Twitter was just starting, and the live tweeting was becoming a thing. So it was good for our newspaper as well, because it was an opportunity to interact with social media in a way that we had never done before.
Okay, who are you again? Oh, I'm only kidding.
So I'm nobody.
You got closer to the mic,
He's
Joe.
the best.
How did you get? When was the first time you did the fair?
20-something years ago.
You have a big ice cream deal when you're not doing this. What is that, first of all?
What's that?
When you're not doing the Big E, what are you doing with yourself?
Hustling somebody.
Okay, so how many 20 years ago you started
Probably
this thing?
20 years ago. We were there for quite a few. We got, for whatever reason, we left for 8 years, and we're back.
Is this fun, or is it just
Have you
like a
mentioned
business?
his T-shirt there?
No, we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Is this like a fun experience as a business person, or you're there just to do business?
So 20 years ago, we were in the ice cream business, but we weren't, right? It was a fair, and you brought your concession trail and you did something. Fast forward 20 years later, we have a storefront. Now it's about marketing your local business. You can't buy that dollar value of advertising on a small scale as a small mom and pop shop. So for us, the Big E brings us 1 million people, local for the most part, that you get to actually meet and greet, like you folks, right?
Yep.
You've never. I'm confused. You've never. We won't go and get into age, but you've never been to the Big E.
I've never
what
been
happened?
to the Big E.
They can't say that anymore.
I'm a
now
disgrace. I'm just a disgrace. I should have been there.
Listen, we're past Worcester. I get it. We don't exist. I get it. But it's just great to hear that all these years you guys finally decided, hey, let's go to the Big E of all places.
Well, because I've heard about it. I've heard about it. Yesterday, I mistakenly called it the Big A. It's not the Big A. It's the Big E.
Yeah.
It's the Big D. It's the Big E. But when you get there, you realize this is like a phenomenon, and you are sort of phenomenal yourself, because you had
We've come a long way.
You had this very. I would
jail
say,
time to FaceTime, right?
There
Here we are.
I know.
It's all
you are
good.
with your Moolicious T-shirt, big cow in the front, like
big cow in the back.
I love that. Yeah. But I think you had a bad idea, and I'm glad it didn't work. Chicken flavored ice cream.
Yeah, the intervention went well.
Yeah, you were doing the rotisserie chicken.
Well, tell us.
The last part was when they walked in and I had a rotisserie chicken, and I was just getting ready to say, well, we got to get the juices out of that, because my other versions didn't work. We spent thousands of dollars on a chicken waffle extract, which I still think would work. By the time I got done with it, you smelled like chicken all day, but boy, it didn't taste like chicken.
Were you making that up, or is this true?
Oh, no, it's true.
You were trying to squeeze the juice out of a chicken?
Not a
dead chicken.
Yeah, roasted chicken.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference.
And so why was
roasted.
it a failure?
I couldn't get the taste right. It was too salty. It just wouldn't. And we brought in chefs to help us. And
okay, so what did you decide to do instead? We sampled this.
It was the best,
which was I think the best thing I had the whole day.
Yes.
It was great.
What I didn't decide anything. I walked in and my staff threw everything in a dumpster and said, "We got to talk."
Yeah.
So the young college kids, high school kids that worked for us smiled and said, "I'm the kind of person that doesn't say no and doesn't quit." And I know when I'm wrong, I still don't quit, right? Mm-hmm. So they nicely helped me quit. They threw everything in the dumpster, the molds, the flavoring, everything in the dumpster. I walked in and said, "Where's my stuff? It's out there." And they picked it up on Friday. So
what is that
I don't know
music?
why the music is playing.
Tell us about the cornbread. I want to know. Tell about that. Was so
cornbread
delicious.
Sundae.
I love corn muffins. It was right up my alley.
Yeah.
Warm cornbread. Tell us the rest.
A year ago or so, someone came to us and said, "Hey, can you make this kind of ice cream? I had it at the shore. I'm kind of cheating on you guys because I went somewhere else for ice cream." I was like, "Sure." We have a good friend up in Illinois. We called him for some extracts, did some talking, and next thing I know, he's got a sweet corn recipe. And Farm Day, so we live in Southwick, which is a couple towns over. They started a Farm Day deal. So, hey, Joey, what can you do for Farm Day? Moolicious Farm, right? We came up with a corn recipe for ice cream.
It's great.
It came to us very icy. You couldn't get it right. We switched cream corn to a very low moisture content, which worked well with a 16% butter fat, and the ice cream was born. After that, it's quick. It's like, like this thing. this is great. You're not going to eat a large of this. You're not
No.
going to
It's a
sit
cream
here.
puff.
It's a cream puff.
Right,
It's a
but
cream
you're
puff.
not going to bang the whole thing out. Sweet corn ice cream, you're not going to eat a large. It's not refreshing in that way. It's not a twist on a hot day, right? It's got more to your palate.
Yeah, it's like a cornbread sundae
Right.
or something. It was delicious.
My vision was what's left on your plate. You have a little piece of cornbread, the turkey. You have some of this, some of that, right? And you mop it up. But let's put that on ice cream.
Okay, so we're talking to Joe Deedy, who's the chicken squeezer. Oh, it was the chicken squeezer.
Chicken squeezer, yeah.
And Liz Roman, our colleague out here at NEPM. Can we step back for a second? Joe mentioned the marketing opportunity. Last year, I read they set an all-time record.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 100,000 people a day, which is 3 Fenway Parks for all of you people out in eastern Massachusetts. But you know what was most, on a serious note, Liz, what really, Alexi Cohen, our great colleague from eastern Massachusetts, who you have a long time
She's a Western Mass.
She, by the way, came out, filmed the thing. There's going to be a YouTube video coming out of it. We hope in the next couple of days we'll alert you about Jim and Marjorie's marvelous adventure led by Liz here. This fair means a lot to a lot of people like you. Lexi said her mother used to take her out of school for a day every year, and Lexi was beaming when she was talking about what other than your living thing, what does this mean for people in this part of the state? I know people come from all over, but from people this part of the state, what does this mean to people, the Big E?
I mean, I think it's a way to highlight Western Massachusetts, right? You have people coming from all over the country to showcase their wares, and then you also have people from all over the region coming to the fair. Economic development is also something that's really important for us, and having people just show up. They don't always just go to the Big E. Sometimes they leave and they want to do something else. It's on a strip with, a ton of different restaurants, and there's also grocery stores and all of that. And then the people who live there, the traffic is a nightmare for them, but they also are able to park cars on their lots, and they make a few bucks off of that as well. And so I think it's important for that. But I think overall, it's just a great family tradition. I've been going literally since the womb. Before I was born, I was at the Big E, and I've gone my entire life. And I think for us, it's just something special to highlight who we are as Western Massachusetts.
We met
residents.
a couple of in the farm area thing where we were looking at the chicks.
Where I saw the huge pig and the 9 little piglets that were nursing. They were only about 6 inches long.
So cute.
But we met a couple, I was about to say, it was coming from eastern Massachusetts, and they come every single year for this thing. They have no Western Mass connection. They didn't grow up here. They just went one year. They loved the damn thing, so they decided to come back. Now, Liz, you're probably the person who is best able to describe succinctly what I ate yesterday. Now, could you, and by the way, in a finite period of time, could you try to list the different things that I consumed?
Yeah, I think.
Ending at malicious, I should say.
We can do it. We started with the Flatliner hot dog and hamburger. Both of those have, besides the beef and the hot dog, you've got chili cheese, you've got nacho cheese, you've got bacon, and on the hot dog you had fries as well. And that was from the Lions Club of Western Mass, or of West,
by the way,
West Springfield.
They're
huge. Oh, they're massive.
Yeah.
They're
Huge.
massive. Everything there is meant to be an exaggeration of what you would normally eat, right?
Yeah.
So we had that. I think you guys had pierogies out of the Massachusetts building.
Yes, we did.
A ton of really good stuff there. We had some White Lion beer as well. That's a local Springfield brewery that's been showing at the fair. And I think then we ended up at Malicious, where we had a couple.
We had the corn dog. We had the corn dog.
And there was a giant corn dog as well. They have a couple different variations on that too.
Could you believe we ate all that?
If I can interrupt,
who?
Gene Cassidy, the
Gene
guy
Cassidy.
who's in charge of the whole deal. Let's take a break. We're dying to talk to Gene. He's the head of this whole thing. Gene Cassidy is president and CEO at Eastern States Exposition, the parent company that runs the Big E. Hey, Gene, first of all, welcome. And secondly, let me say to you, I haven't stepped on a scale, but I believe I gained 12 pounds yesterday. Is that a record? Do you know?
I'm not sure it is, because I think there are people who actually try to beat that. But the interesting thing is it's really hard to do because it's 175 acres. I mean, the property is enormous, and there's a lot of walking to do. So I don't think any of the calories count. So I doubt that you put any pounds on whatsoever.
You're a sweet guy, Gene. I mentioned a minute ago. Last year you set a record, roughly 100,000 people a day, 1.6 million, 1.7 million. I assume your goal is to surpass it. Is this like a logistical nightmare for you?
Well, it really isn't. Some of the media picks up on it, and it's funny. They really want to talk about attendance because it's something to be proud of and celebratory of. But sometimes they can use it as a cudgel against you. We have 175 acres. The fairgrounds is open for 16 hours a day, and not everybody's here at the same time.
Yeah, but
it was smooth. I should say, by the way, I was sure as hell wasn't complaining.
No,
it was
very
actually
smooth.
Very smooth yesterday. Yeah.
But we didn't mention it's just not all the hot dogs and the fries and the wonderful ice cream and stuff. There's a lot of crafts, a lot of clothing, a lot of beautiful
so much.
landscapers there that have examples of their landscaping. I mean, it was, and every state, all the New England states. Tell us about that, Gene.
Well, I mean, there's so much to see, and of course, it's easy and fun to talk about the caloric gastronomic delights that are available, right? Because there's. I mean, I was late to the call because I was trying to finish a cream puff. But you know, and then you think about all the amazing talent that's on the stages, both free and then on the weekends some of the paid acts.
The music,
they get a lot of attention, but really, our agricultural program is the biggest, best in North America. And what we do to promote and to sustain agriculture is extremely important. I am really the chief steward of an institution that drives agricultural markets for the next generation of farmer. And, if you're a mom or dad or a grandparent trying to make prodigy to continue your family farm, if you can't find a way for your kids or grandkids to make a living into the future, then that farm's going to go away. So it's our responsibility to really kind of inform people about their food and to prepare marketing so that they can advance and make a living in agriculture. And that's really our core mission here. And it's not as sexy to talk about as the cheese curds, but that's really what we're here for.
We miss the cheese curds.
Hey, Gene Cassie, who comes to the? I assume you have some sense of the demographic breakdown. As I was saying to Liz and Joe before you came on the line, we bumped into a couple from Eastern Massachusetts who never had a Western Mass connection, have come every year, I think they said, for 16 years, 17 years. Who comes to this thing?
Well, we love to hear that because, geographically in Massachusetts, we tend to drive north-south. So, people on the Cape go to Maine, and, people here in the western side of the state, they go to Connecticut and they go up to Vermont. We're not an east-west state. So demographically, we draw more people from metropolitan New York City than we do from Greater Boston.
Wow.
So I love to hear you talking about this because we really need, the Topsfield Fair is an amazing fair, and my friends, Jamie O'Brien runs that operation. It's a historic fair, but it's about 1/5 the size of the Eastern States Exposition. So the Big E is the fourth largest cultural event that takes place in North America. It's huge, and everybody in Massachusetts, they should all have an ownership interest in this place. So our demographic is really, we about 45%, a little bit less than 45% of our attendance comes from the state of Connecticut. The rest mostly from Massachusetts and neighboring states. But we'll have people we have agriculture here from 27 different states. So we'll have people here from Oregon, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, from the 4 Canadian provinces, all showing their agriculture, and they bring people with them. So it's really quite a big international crowd, Rick.
When you say showing the agriculture, Gene, you mean bringing their cows, bringing their horses, bringing their pigs?
Yes, they've got heavy animals, big livestock. The fair is so packed with agriculture that we don't have a swine show during the fair because we're not big enough. We don't have enough space. So our swine or pig show takes place outside of the fair at a different time of year.
Gene Cassidy runs the whole deal. He's the CEO of this whole operation. Last question. I know you got to get back to work. I don't know if it was Governor Patrick was with us yesterday, and he mentioned you got to go to the Massachusetts House. And I don't know if it was him or somebody else said that each of the New England states that has a House, they own the land. I don't know, own wasn't the right word. That when you're in the Massachusetts House, you're in Massachusetts. When you're in the Connecticut House, you're in Connecticut. Is that true?
Sure. So when we were founded in 1916, our mission was really to drive agriculture and industry in New England. So the original name of the organization was the Eastern States Agricultural and Industrial Exposition. So the state buildings were built by the individual states. It's the only place in the United States where one state owns deeded property within the boundaries of another state.
I love it.
Somebody's gonna fact check that. I mean, there is an odd circumstance where the state of New Hampshire actually owns a little piece of the state of Vermont, but that was for lumbering back in the 18th century. So the states are here. They represent their culture, their product, their makers, their commodity groups. And they're here to try to incubate business to drive industry within the states. And the state buildings are amazing. They're historic. They're beautiful. And I encourage people to come and investigate and see what they haven't seen yet.
Gene, we had a great time yesterday. It was our first time. We'll be back. Thanks for your time today. It's good to meet you.
Thanks so much, guys. Best wishes.
Thank you very much for being with us, Gene. But I wonder if it means if the state police who are on the job there at the Massachusetts Pavilion, if you do something wrong in front of the state police, can you jump across to
Connecticut? Yeah. That's extradite you.
Come back, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Joe Deedy, you're a tad of a character, we learned yesterday.
Yes.
Sure.
So, do you venture far away from the malicious area? Do you do anything at this fair other than hang out and do your own deal, or no? Do you go to anything else?
As far as other fairs?
Yeah, no. Within the fair, do you enjoy
like the Ferris wheel or the
Big
carousel or?
When would you have the time?
We're there. We leave Southwick at probably 4 a.m. We're there around, 4:30.
And you're working the whole time. You're essentially working.
What's working though? I don't really work.
Yeah, there is that attitude about you. Do you know that?
I don't really work.
No, just squeezing chickens and relaxing.
Chickens. Yep. Banging out some cones, making some ice cream, and putting smiles on people's faces.
We also had the little nuggets that were shaped like chicken nuggets. The moon nuggets. Explain the moon nuggets. What those are.
So the end game was my staff looked at me, smiled, and said, "We're going to make chicken nuggets. We're not going to do this crazy stuff you're trying to do, Joseph." So what ice cream do you use at this point, right? It ain't going to be chicken. That got thrown away. And it's fair time. So maple look good. So let's make some maple ice cream. Let's take some Applewood smoked bacon. We'll throw it in the machine while we're making it. And out came that product. We took that product. We scooped it into small scoops. And they're made by 30 different people, right? Every piece of staff member is over there doing something. So they're not all the same size. It's not a production factory.
Yeah, that's okay.
Right. So a little piece of maple cream ice cream with bacon. We dip it in a white chocolate shell, and then we roll it in crushed frosted cornflakes.
Come on.
It was
so good.
Yep.
When Gene Cassidy called in a couple of minutes ago.
You ate that too.
What?
And you also ate the Finnish pancakes from the
Oh my
Massachusetts
gosh, yes, we
Pavilion.
ate the Finnish pancakes.
Pickled eggs. That's what I was going to say. Gene interrupted your retelling of the things that I ate yesterday. What else was on the list?
I think we had the Finnish pancake, there was the pierogies, there was the corn dog. This sounds crazy when you're listing it off like that. There's the corn dog, the 2 giant Flatliner hot dogs, the Flatliner hamburger, the White Lion beer, the Moo nuggets with dipping sauce, the cornbread sundae, and then the moo nut as well. We had that as well.
Yep.
Oh my God.
All quite healthy, I should say.
Yeah, very healthy. Listen, when you go to the fair, you're going there to have a good time. It's not the kind of food you eat every day, so take advantage and just enjoy it. And like Gene said, you're walking around the entire time. There ain't no calories there.
I did?
You walked it off.
No, I didn't, but thank you anyway. Can I tell you something else?
We had to drive him away from the lobster volcano.
The thing you left off, no, we didn't. I was a little too full.
Yeah, that was massive. It's like this giant bisque bowl with lobster in it. So.
You know what you left off your list, Elizabeth Roman, is Zoe wandered off.
Yes, she did.
What did she come back? This thing, I have to say, I want to be nice about everything.
I'm not going to be nice.
To take.
What
was
rough.
That thing?
That was a Dr. Pepper dill drink. So it had some I don't know if it was pickle juice in it. I know there was a pickle on the top of it. I'm guessing it
chunk of pickle.
Yeah, it was rough. She was daring. I didn't even try it. I smelled it and I was like, I'm good.
Wow.
How's business?
Good.
It is?
Yeah, we're off a little bit down there, but I think they're really doing and I think that's why everybody's asking about the attendance numbers and where they're at.
Yeah.
They're really trying to move things around down there, so your Monday through Thursday may be busier than in years past. They're trying to get those weekends not as cramped up as they used to be at times. So we're off a little bit, but we're fine. Last year was such a record year. It's very hard. And that's the problem out there. Everyone wants to compare what you did last year.
Before you go, are you as easygoing in real life as you are? I mean, I worried when I left you yesterday. I was talking about you to Marjorie, and I said, I hope he's not like a mass murderer on the side. I mean, you are so relaxed and easygoing. It made me less tense. Are you like that in real life?
Yeah.
I can attest to that. He is. I've been interviewing him for over 15 years now or something like that. It's been a long time.
Why do you need to get tensed up over anything?
That's fabulous.
That's right.
We can't control any of this, so let's just put a smile on, do our best that day, and we'll move on.
Liz,
and he's making ice cream all day.
Well, that's it. You're selling smiles.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy.
Yeah.
Not only are you a wonderful colleague, but you were the best tour guide ever.
Oh, thank you.
We had a fabulous
time.
And by the way, getting back to what Gene said, if you're in Eastern Massachusetts listening to us, this is really worth the trip. It is a great day or days. It's really fun. It's not your typical Boston-oriented kind of deal, and we'd urge you to do it.
Let's be honest, Jim. You wanted to ride the train around the whole Big E. We couldn't.
They do have a train, and adults are allowed on the train. So.
Tell them what happened. The conductor said I wouldn't fit after
all the food. We should have done it at the beginning.
What's that? You want to stay nice, right? Okay, fine.
I know when to fold.
No comment.
Joe, it's great
No
to see you. I
comment.
hope we see you again next
Okay.
year. Liz, it's great to
Thank
see
you so
All
much,
right,
both
folks.
of you, for coming in.
You
And
guys
thank
can
you
work
for all-
next year. Come down for the day. We'll put you to
We
work.
might do
That's
that.
right.
We might do that.
Honestly,
Let's go.
even a half hour, quickie.
Thanks for the cream
I would like
puff,
to make
too.
some
It's
ice cream.
fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, we've been speaking with Elizabeth Roman, Executive Director of NEPM, and Joe Deedy of Moolicious Farms, maker of that wonderful, fantastic ice cream. Coming up after this quick break, Monty Bemonte and Khalees Smith from the fabulous 413 right here at NEPM joins us in the Star Studio. I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Tim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from NEPM Star Studio and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, more than 2/3 of Jewish citizens think the Trump administration is using anti-Semitism as a cover to go after schools like Harvard, according to a new poll. And this week in sports, Esteban Bustillos uncovers the forgotten legacy of a national title-winning soccer team from Andover being celebrated by the town 100 years later. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering dynamic short programs tailored for mid-career professionals looking to build expertise in innovation, leadership, and technology. Details at executive.mit.edu. And Moderna. mNEXSpike, COVID-19 vaccine mRNA by Moderna, is available. Pharmacists can help with any questions about mNEXSpike.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're live at NEPM's terrific Star Studio in Springfield. Stream at youtube.com/GBH News. In about 10 minutes, the Attorney General is going to join us in the studio for an hour. Today, for our Two More Things segment, we're bringing you two more hosts, Monty Belmonte and Khalees Smith, hosts of the fabulous 413. Airs daily here at NEPM at 3 o'clock. Hi to both of you guys.
Hello.
I'll be thing 2, you be thing 1.
Okay.
That's right.
God.
That's
We're
right.
in the home of Dr. Seuss, after all.
I mean,
That is true. We haven't mentioned Dr. Seuss since
Well,
we've
we
been
did
here,
now,
have
didn't we?
he's got a whole museum and everything.
That's right.
All his own.
So I know yesterday I goofed up as I usually do, called the big E, the big A, and the big D, and all that kind of got people's names wrong. But Jim,
I'm a big fan of the big D.
Yeah, Big D.
Only when
Well,
it's
I don't think we
absolutely.
should go there, if you know what I mean. But thank you for
But
that.
Jim asked Khalees what people were saying about not about me, but about him.
Behind
can
our
you-
backs.
Can you
Tell
tell us behind our backs what the scoop was?
She said nice things. That's not true. is
About
it?
you two?
Yeah.
Well, there's two things going on here. You brought a new energy to the building, which I think is fantastic. But a little bit of it is the Jesus is coming, look busy kind of energy. Which I think also is good.
I don't know if I've noticed that. I think I've just been too busy doing our normal stuff to notice the other one.
I'm waiting in the wings. But seriously, like, the energy that your show brings.
We have
We got to go see your show in Boston and come to the public library.
And now you're
what
in
you
our
do,
house.
What you mean for the
That's
community
right.
of Boston is what we aspire to be for the 4 counties of Western
Well,
Mass.
actually, speaking
Okay.
of that,
I think
mean,
he's being a little
But
sarcastic.
only in an
there.
hour.
I absolutely am not.
Nobody wants 3 hours of us.
Yeah, no, 1 is fine.
By the way, we've asked, in all seriousness, in the last 36 hours, we've asked a lot of people about you, too. People we've met her from here.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the reviews are really
they all knew about you at
rave.
the
And I'm not
BE.
surprised, actually. But people feel really good about it. And what led me to, on a serious note, GBH, and I don't mean this because us, it's an old institution, is really valued in the greater Boston community and beyond. How is the NEPM viewed? I mean, we've had a fabulous experience here. How's it seen in this community, particularly when funding is so not only under attack, but disappeared in the federal level, Khalees?
Well, I think it's pretty valued around here just in general. Like, and part of that is like the concentration of academia, but like part of it is also that like radio really does connect in a way here that is tangible. Like, so the information that we give is really important, and like having more connection to the arts through us talking with all the artists that we like and that people bring forward to us to meet, like, is really important. It's an important resource for people to be more connected to the community here, because it can be kind of isolating.
You not in agreement, or what are you doing?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that the medium of radio is important, and I've used this speech a million times, but we always say the sign out there says on the air. But the technology of radio is light. It is invisible light. So what we're trying to do is spread the light. We're trying to hit the 4 counties of Western Mass and give people a sense of community and show them about where they live, teach them about where they live.
We only have 30 seconds. I don't want to end on a down note, but I'm going to end on a down note.
Do it.
No, we're told that you are claiming credit for inventing Live Music Friday?
I'm claiming credit for the title Live Music Friday that you stole.
He did. He did.
Well, that is really a negative note.
I love you guys. I'm glad you're here. I hope you come again.
By the way, you guys are great hosts. The whole place are great hosts, and we love your show.
Awesome.
It's great to
Thank
see
you.
you,
Do
too.
you want to take it out in the hall and work it out?
After the show at 2
We'll arm
o'clock.
wrestle.
Okay.
Good to see you both.
Monte and Khalees Smith, host of the Fabulous 413, which airs daily here on 88.5 NEPM at 3. It's a really fun, great show. Thank you very much for having us here. Coming up after the 11 o'clock, the 1 o'clock news, whoops.
Whatever it is.
Attorney General Andrea Campbell joins us here in Springfield at the NEPM studios for another edition of Ask the Attorney General, taking our questions and yours. I'm Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, live from NEPM Star Studio and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Join GBH at our Brighton studios for Stories from the Stage. You'll hear entertaining, inspirational stories while you enjoy drinks with friends. Join our studio audience at one of our upcoming shows. Tickets and more info at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com. And North Shore Music Theater, presenting Rent, Jonathan Larson's rock musical about struggling artists navigating life during the AIDS crisis in the East Village at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater, September 16th through 28th. nsmt.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from Springfield. It's a special Western Mass edition of Ask the Attorney General with Mass AG Andrea Joy Campbell. She joins us in studio.
I'm Marjorie Egan. We'll talk about standing up to ICE and the Trump administration, the rise in political violence, and more. Have a question for the Attorney General? Call or give us a text at 877-301-8970. The AG is next on the third hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from Springfield.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. 2 weeks before a possible government shutdown, House Republicans are unveiling legislation to fund the government through November 21st and add security resources for government officials. It's unclear they have the votes to pass it. The stopgap bill extends current funding levels for federal agencies for 7 weeks and adds $58 million to boost security for the federal judiciary and for executive branch officials following a request from the White House. Republican leaders in the House added another $30 million to increase resources that lawmakers can use for their own security. House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters today the bill allows more time to come to agreement on year-long spending bills. Democrats have pressed Republicans for bipartisan talks on a short-term bill and are demanding that any spending extension should address health care subsidies that are due to expire at the end of the year. Some Democrats are also demanding that a bill roll back the changes to the Medicaid program that were part of the GOP tax bill that was signed into law in July. The man suspected of fatally shooting conservative activist Charlie Kirk will be formally charged today at a court hearing in Utah. NPR's Tovia Smith says 22-year-old Tyler Robinson is expected to face multiple counts, including aggravated murder, which carries a potential death sentence under state law.
Authorities say they have, quote, mountains of evidence, including DNA at the scene of the shooting, and they say Robinson wrote a note ahead of the attack sharing his intention, as FBI Director Kash Patel told Fox News.
He claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for.
Patel did not say who may have received that note or whether they may have tried to intervene. Robinson will make his first appearance in court virtually from his jail cell, where he's been held without bail. Tovia Smith, NPR News, St. George, Utah.
At an anti-hate summit in Pittsburgh today, Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro urged elected officials to condemn all violence, regardless of party affiliation.
In America, that this work doesn't just fall to others, it falls to each and every one of us.
The governor was the target of political violence earlier this year when his residence was set on fire while his family was home. The Federal Reserve's policymakers are meeting for the next 2 days. Investors are watching to see if the Fed reduces interest rates by as much as President Trump wants. The central bank will announce its decision tomorrow afternoon. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new national survey out today captures how Americans who are Jewish view President Trump's policies targeting Harvard and other universities. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza has more.
28% of Jewish citizens say they believe the president, quote, truly cares about Jewish students. But 72% say Trump uses anti-Semitism as a smokescreen to pause or cut funding for colleges.
The rationale is based on anti-Semitism.
Jamie Druckman is one of the political science professors at the University of Rochester who's behind the survey.
The overwhelming majority of Jewish respondents felt that anti-Semitism was being used as an excuse rather than as a authentic rationale to protect Jewish students.
The survey found that conservative and Orthodox Jews were much more sympathetic to Trump than Reform Jews or those who are unaffiliated. Kirk Carapezza, GBH News.
Good news for supporters of the Northern Tier passenger rail. The Daily Hampshire Gazette reports that the legislative support for the 140-mile commuter rail that would run along the northern edge of Massachusetts connecting Boston and North Adams is growing. In August, select board members in Northfield, Deerfield, and Whately each signed letters backing the Mass Department of Transportation's application to the Federal Railroad Administration's Corridor ID program to move that Northern Tier passage rail to the next level. Sports, Red Sox and A's open a series tonight at Fenway, 6:45 start, 74 degrees outside the Basketball Hall of Fame right now, right down the street from the Star Studio at NEPM. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from NEPM Star Studio in Springfield, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back in Boston at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Juliette Kayyem, Harvard and national security expert, Carol Rose from the ACLU, author Sy Montgomery with a new book about snapping turtles, this huge snapping turtles that Jim and I actually got to pet.
Fire chief.
Yeah, fire chief. September 23rd, we're going to be joined by Mayor Michelle Wu, and on September 30th, we're going to be joined by the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Both of them will be at the Boston Public Library taking our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again. And the Attorney General is in the building. She'll be in the studio in about a minute, available to take your questions and ours. And if you want to text her or call her, as always, the number is 877-301-8970. I was remiss. I didn't hear the national news at the top of this hour, so I don't know how much they talked about Kash Patel, the head of the FBI's testimony in front of Congress, but a couple of things, some of which we knew. He said that more than 20 people in an online chat in which Tyler Robinson appeared to admit to the killing. They're all going to be questioned. This I hadn't known before. I don't know if you did, Marjorie. Asked if other people could have been involved in the murder. Patel said, yes, sir. And there's some conspiracy theorists, I believe that's the best you can give it right now, who've been on, speaking of online headaches, there's tons of video of this guy in a white baseball cap near the front who allegedly, they argue, signaled to the shooter that this is the time. Who knows what the deal is? They asked about his roommate, Robinson's roommate, who's transitioning. Can I voice, while we're waiting for the Attorney General, a real pet peeve I have?
Certainly.
With otherwise excellent reporters.
Yep.
I was watching CNN's reporting on this either last night or the night before, and there was a great reporter, because I read her work, and a great reporter for the New York Times, because I read his work, who were talking about these online chat groups where Tyler Robinson were allegedly involved. And they both referred to the alleged shooter as Tyler by his first name. I was really offended, almost like in a familiar sort of way.
Yeah.
And also, when you refer to someone by the first name, it's usually a warm kind of connection. You're more the journalist than I. Is that okay by your standards, or is that no? I don't mean it's a great transgression, but
usually after the first reference, you refer to someone by their last name only. Sometimes people don't do that with women; they feel funny doing that with women, but it is unusual.
Why?
I think just an old hangover from the days when you were Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. But generally, I think you call them by their last name, or you put their first and last name together.
Otherwise, it softens the. I mean,
it's
again,
more
he's
familiar.
innocent until proven. We all know that, but it just softens. One last thing about Patel. Obviously, if you listen to the show, I'm no fan, and I think objective people would not be a fan under any circumstance. But he was criticized by one of the senators for writing on X last week. We talked about this on Twitter, that the quote subject was in custody a day before Robinson's family turned him in, and then he had a tweet that releasing the suspect. To his credit, rather than doing that bold, never admit anything is wrong about anything Trumpian deal, he said he could have worded it better, which is not, a straightforward acknowledgement that I jumped the gun. So that's a horrible choice of words.
Well,
that I acted too quickly.
The guy has no expertise. He has no training. He's never done anything like this before. Why should we expect he's going to go in there and step into one of the most important jobs?
Well, he's a rabid advocate. I mean, essentially,
but he's totally unqualified for the job. So I think the fact that he's not done very well in the job to date should be no surprise. And neither is Dan Bongino.
Yeah.
I mean, at least he has some long experience in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in a way that, he talked a lot of the Trump's people talk about merit-based system. What is he talking about? This is not a merit-based system. He's not qualified. Heggs isn't qualified. We have a cabinet. Pam Bondi's
thank goodness
not
RFK
qualified.
Jr. is really qualified.
Yeah, we have a cabinet full of people I think most people would say are not there because of their merit.
They're loyal.
Because of their loyalty
loyalists
to the president.
By the way, we are minutes away. She's walking up to this floor in the building now. In fact, the door is about to open. And the person walking through the door is the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. And even though she's late, I'm going to offer her a bite of my... What is this thing that I'm eating?
It's a cream puff.
A cream puff.
You have an espresso
from
cream
the Big
puff.
E.
I had the plain espresso cream. It's massive. And
How are
I
you?
ate too much of it, and I'm not feeling well at a particular moment.
How are you, Attorney General? Good to see you.
I'm doing great.
Welcome
that
to Springfield.
thing is huge.
It is huge.
It is.
I was just here on Saturday. I spent a lot of time in Western Mass.
You do?
Yes, I do. I
Isn't
believe
it
in
pretty?
regional equity.
Okay.
I really do.
I'm, sure
I'm so
you
happy
do.
you guys are out here. This was great.
Yeah, it's
great.
It's very, very pretty. And I'm going to drive home on advice of our executive producer, Jane Bologna. I'm going to drive home on Route 2. I think it's going to be much prettier
It's
than the Mass
beautiful.
Pike.
And that puff is huge.
Cream puff.
Yeah, it's
whatever
massive.
It is. I got it for you.
Oh.
Okay, so as I said before, if you want to speak or text the question to the Attorney General, she's with us for the rest of the hour. She's in studio in Springfield, 877-301-8970. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before we get to the questions from texters and from callers, Attorney General, I just wanted to ask you, we're at a very high temperature, uneasy point in the United States of America since this Charlie Kirk assassination. What do you make of the aftermath and the kind of vitriol back and forth and the efforts not to be so vitriolic, which seem not to be much heated? What do you think?
Well, one, I don't hide my faith. I am deeply faithful. I consider myself a believer, and I talk about my faith in Jesus and spreading the gospel quite publicly, regardless, of this position. It's the foundation of my life. And so I, too, like everybody else, was horrified by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yet I was also horrified by the assassination and killing of the Minnesota speaker and her husband and the targeted attacks on the Minnesota officials. Equally horrified by the arson attempt on Governor Shapiro or the kidnapping attempt on Gretchen Whitmer. So I remain horrified by the political violence in this country and have said unequivocally it's unacceptable and it has to stop. And I think what's equally important is that our response to those incidents has to be consistent. This isn't about parties. This isn't about what state you're in, left, right, Democrat, Republican, Independent. This is about modeling for our children. I'm a mom, but also modeling for every single person who lives in this country that we live in a democratic society, and there's an expectation and a requirement that we have dialogue that is peaceful, and at the end of the day, agree to disagree. And if you don't like someone's rhetoric, well, don't go to their rally, right? If you don't like someone's politics, well, don't vote for them. But at no point should anyone be in fear of being killed. And let me also be clear, while I am a believer and speak to those values openly, I had real and absolute concern and at times anger with respect to the rhetoric coming from Charlie Kirk, especially when it came to, say, black women or black leaders. They were derogatory, hateful, condescending, to say the least.
Well, you know, I'm so glad you mentioned being a woman of faith, because we had former Governor Deval Patrick here yesterday, and he mentioned being a man of faith. And he talked about how people that are supposedly like Charlie Kirk, or a lot of people that are in the Republican Party now, they're Christians. But Deval Patrick said he had difficulty with their calling themselves Christians because they seem to be reading a different New Testament than what Deval Patrick was reading, because it talks about including, not excluding, not judging, accepting, and the poor. So,
and the widow and the foreigner.
Yeah. So how do you see that as a woman of faith?
I first of all, it was great that the governor was here, my former boss who I worked with as an attorney, and I still have the utmost respect and admiration for him. Yes, I simply ask folks, where's the Jesus in it, right? Jesus, at the end of the day, whether you have read the Bible from front to cover, which I have several times, whether you've memorized scriptures or not, Jesus was about love, period. And it is, in this day and age, love that many will say will win the day, ultimately. And so for me, when I hear someone spreading the gospel, I appreciate anyone who frankly would get out there, even those who are of a different faith tradition, to talk about why they hold that faith tradition and why it's important to them. In my office of close to 700 people, there are numerous and several faith traditions. I don't ask anyone to hide that. And there's some with none, and that's okay. At the end of the day, I appreciate anyone who would have the courage in this culture and society to stand up and spread the gospel and spread the word. At the same time, let's complete the picture with respect to who is speaking to some of their gospel, because if they are adding additional layers of offensiveness in it, including having a derogatory commentary about Justice Jackson of the Supreme Court, or his commentary on replacement theory, or black pilots, absolutely offensive. And so I, if anything, get out there and model what I sort of not only model my faith, but most importantly, model for folks who are around me what Jesus actually stood for, both the Old and the New Testament. And I think that's important for believers in this day and age to stand up, but with full authenticity. I welcome folks all the time with love and affection, without judgment. That is not my role to cast judgment on anybody. We're all sinners, is what our gospel says. And at the end of the day, we have to choose how we're going to reconcile that sin in order to, of course, go to the other side. So I have been, everywhere I go at least, making sure that the picture is complete with respect to Charlie Kirk and all of his statements.
One last Kirk-related question, then we're going to get to your calls and texts, 877-301-8970. Obviously, that's the voice of Andrea Joy Campbell, Attorney General of Massachusetts. In accord with what the decision was from the President of the United States, from Donald Trump, after the flags were lowered to half-staff on Friday for 9/11, Thursday, I think, for 9/11. The flags remained at half-staff in our state and a number of states run by liberal/progressive governors, because Trump lowered them for Charlie Kirk. I try not to speak for Marjorie, but I know we shared I don't know how to describe it. I was surprised. Troubled by it and surprised.
I was surprised that we did it in
Massachusetts. Are you supportive of the flag being lowered or remain lowered by the governor?
I mentioned all of those incidents of political violence, and I mentioned obviously the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but also of the Minnesota speaker and her husband, and so many others. And my firm belief is that you have to be consistent in your response. And here you have a federal administration that has not been consistent. It lowered the flag for Charlie Kirk, but not for this woman who was an elected official who was targeted at her home and killed along with her family member. Everyone should be horrified by that. She wasn't even outside at work. She was targeted at her home along with other elected officials. So we have to be consistent. So we're going to lower the flag. You lower it for everybody. Here, I get where the governor is. The statute requires that she lower the flag when the federal government lowers it. That is crystal clear. There's no interpretation on that. Yet I think at the same time, when you do something like that, then you have to offer an explanation publicly and why. Because, for example, I was engaging with folks in the Black community who were upset by the flag lowering for Charlie Kirk because of his offensive comments directed towards Black folks and other categories of folks too. And they did not understand the rationale. They absolutely didn't know what the law was. And at the same time, we're also dealing with a policy issue where we had a state employee working for MassDOT who died on the job, and his family out of Lexington, and his family wanted the flag lowered. That didn't happen because it's not crystal clear according to the statute, even though we thought, well, we got to change that. All public employees who die on the job, we should be lowering the flag. So I think it actually presents an opportunity for the governor and the administration and the legislature, obviously, because it's a law on the books, to really think about what the law is and how it's being used, sadly, and weaponized in many ways to only lower it for one particular individual and not the other horrors of political violence we're seeing in this country. And at the end of the day, because I know this is consuming so much news and attention, every single person in this country, every American, right, should absolutely be concerned about the political divisiveness and violence that is occurring right now. And we have an opportunity to choose to show up differently. I love my job. I love being the AG of this state. And as I do the work, I do it with thoughtfulness. We take on the Trump administration, not because it's personal. I pray for Trump, just like I was horrified by the attempted assassination on then candidate Trump. And I called that out. I didn't mince my words. And so all of us should be horrified by all of these attempts and sort of have a reset, even in our own personal encounters. There were folks who I think get angry and don't agree to disagree. So this is an opportunity for all of us to sort of think about how we adjust our own behavior and then hold elected officials accountable to calling out this political violence and at the end of the day, calling for it to end.
Let's take some calls, 877-301-8970.
I was just waving to the people in the back. Thank you all very much.
Yes, they're waving back.
NEPM crew.
Not all of them, by the way. Some of them are.
Lucis.
Some are my team members. Others are helping us make sure this works. I'm grateful.
Lucis from someplace in Massachusetts. Thank you for calling.
Hi there.
Are you there?
Hello? Luceth? Let's put Luceth on hold. We'll get back to Luceth after we try
Naomi from Cambridge. Thank you for
Naomi.
calling.
You're on with the Attorney General. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
Attorney General, we met at Juneteenth, Boston Juneteenth, not last year, but the year before. So anyway, hello again.
Hi, and thank you for calling in.
I'm calling because I'm very fearful and concerned about what's going on in the DA's office in Norfolk County. There's, in terms of political divisiveness, it creates fear that's really inhibiting. And honestly, seeing what the selective prosecution that's going on and the just the misconduct in general with like the Brian Walsh case and with aiding tyranny, it feels very personal. And I'm wondering whether you're looking into that at all. I know that my understanding is that aiding tyranny, the Morrissey asked you to look into it, and you said no. But now it's in, I don't know, they're still going after it about speech, and it's disturbing in this day and age that journalists are being attacked like that.
By the way, Aidan Kearney, for those who don't recognize the name, goes by Turtle Boy. He's more familiar there. Naomi, thanks for the question.
Karen Reed trial, we should say, he was involved in.
Yeah, Attorney General.
Great. So most of these matters are still within Norfolk County is still within the current district attorney. If we have anything that is open, God bless you, Marjorie. And first of all, thank you, Naomi, for calling in. If we have anything that's open or an open investigation, I can't comment on it publicly. I can comment on the fact that actions out of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office that involve Turtle Boy are absolutely public as of right now because it's an open matter. And then, of course, if there are other things in our office that are investigations and are open, I can't comment. That being said, I do think at the end of the day, whether we're talking about accountability and political violence and elected officials speaking up to say something, all of us are elected. We're all in these roles because the people put us here. And most importantly, after the people put us here, to your point, Naomi, it was great to meet you, but you're staying engaged. People should hold us accountable. They ask us to do certain things. They want us to show up in a certain way. They want us to have transparency, accountability, etc. All of us are elected, and they have the power of the ballot, which sometimes are more powerful than even our tools in our respective offices to hold folks accountable, and they shouldn't forget that.
Let's talk about an investigation briefly that matters to the people listening in Western Mass that is no longer open. Springfield Gardens. Tell people what it is and what you did.
So Springfield Gardens, and kudos to the entire team. Andy, who is our interim director of the Springfield office. We have an office in Springfield. This has been a victory in so many different ways. So it is a housing case of the most egregious incidents and has been around for some years. I actually inherited this case in thousands of complaints from tenants, including former tenants, who complained about a range of sanitary housing code violations that they had to endure, including lack of heat, lack of hot water, pest infestations, lack of security, where folks would sort of come in and out of a building so they didn't feel safe, effects on the public health of their children who were living in these conditions, just egregious to say the least. And what's worse, they were expected to pay rent, and they did. And so we got involved deeply in this case, made it a priority when I got into office, because not only do I believe in regional equity, I never will forget Western Mass and Springfield, and got a victory recently. We were holding the landlord of these properties, and it was the largest, frankly, landlord at the time, is based in New Jersey. And so the victory is twofold. One is this landlord and management company can never operate in Massachusetts ever again. And frankly, I think that was really important to so many folks. In addition, it's I think it's now over $10 million. Is that right? So I'll make
She's
sure I
motioning to her colleague if you're not
because we had
watching
another
on
settlement
YouTube.
recently, but it's millions of dollars that will be allowed to, one, force the company to forgive rents.
$7.5 million.
Thank you, $7.5 million.
That's why I'm here, Attorney General.
And of course, I'm looking at all my notes.
What else do you want to know?
Because one time I was on here and I think I added like $10 million to a settlement, and it was lesser than that. So I want to be accurate. So it was that's to forgive rents and to say to all those folks who have harmed, you don't get that money from these tenants. But the other is we have over $2 million, 2.5, to actually provide meaningful restitution. So we are actively talking to tenants, tenant organizers who never let this case go, and so many stakeholders involved to figure out how we can get this money in restitution back into the pockets of these tenants who deserve it. And so more to come on that.
Great.
Attorney General, we have a couple of very troubling, there are a lot of troubling instances of ICE taking people off the streets. City Councilor in Boston, Liz Bearden, talked about Wednesday morning, a mother apprehended while bringing a child to the high school, to Brighton High School. The parent was apprehended and a child was left in the car, an elementary age school child was left in the car. Then we had the case of Gustavo Oliveira, Milford, who was taken into custody at 16 by ICE agents after he got a sandwich in Milford, and the Department of Homeland Security said he wasn't the intended target. They had no idea he was a minor. There's some really scary things happening. I know you talked about people's rights in these situations, but boy, it doesn't seem to me like they have any rights most of the time. They just keep to get put in the car and will ask questions or answer them maybe later and maybe not.
The ICE enforcement, the ICE surge we're seeing is horrifying. And I say that because, Marjorie, you just mentioned cases that are public. There are so many cases that are not, and that do involve minors, and I think for those reasons they're not public. And I, along with other community-based organizations, and there are a lot of community-based organizations on the ground that we're working with, including the governor, who I just met with, along with a whole host of community organizations, just met with Mayor Wu, given the surge. There are a lot of folks on the ground who do this work with us, but it's rapid response. It's ensuring people have access to lawyers immediately, ensuring they have access to bond, and even as they change the rules of who's eligible for bond, ensuring they do know what their rights are, because when they do, they can actually not only get a lawyer quickly, but folks know who to call, when to call, with the hopes that you actually keep them here in Massachusetts so they are not in some clandestine way shipped off to another state, which makes it more difficult for us to advocate for them. In addition to that, we continue to show up on the legal side of things to protect TPS and other statuses. And if those statuses are extended, it obviously protects our people, including our large Haitian population.
Temporary
so they can
protected status for those.
That's right. Who can stay here. So they're not picked up by ICE. So we're continuing to bring our lawsuits, continuing to support other states, California, DC, not only on the ICE enforcement and racial profiling pieces, working with the ACLU as well, but also on the National Guard and the potential of the National Guard coming. So we're doing everything in our power, and we will. And we will take whatever paths we need to protect our people. At the same time, I'm very mindful, and so is the federal administration, as to what their authority here is when it comes to not only crafting immigration policies, and I may think they are cruel and harmful. They are. They do not promote public safety. They're only promoting fear. If you're picking up young people who have no criminal record or asylum seekers, we just heard a horrible story about someone who was a U.S. citizen getting cancer treatment and their husband was deported. And this person was deported while their relative is getting cancer treatment with no criminal record, right? So it is cruel and unusual policy, and yet they have the authority to craft these policies and to, as I'm looking at him on TV, to go to different places to make sure to bring about greater fear in our communities. So we will do our part, but this is where I also remind folks in the most loving way, even after looking at, I'll be candid, the abysmal turnout numbers in the recent Boston election.
I know.
People, voting matters. It absolutely matters. So, for example, in what we were just talking about, if you want the flag lowered for every political violence act in this country, voting matters. If you want an administration that is not picking up teenagers with no criminal record and who are doing everything right to go about accomplishing their dreams and contributing to our country and to our state, but yet being picked up, voting matters. Who's in these positions, crafting these policies, how they're even using your limited federal tax resources for these efforts versus, for example, collaborating with us on human trafficking, which hasn't slowed down, or drug trafficking, gun trafficking, which hasn't slowed down. That's your vote. And so I know a lot of folks think, I don't do politics. I don't trust you people. I get it. I'm out here trying to earn people's support every day by being transparent. We won't agree on everything, but at least being honest and straight. Voting matters, and I can't stress that enough. It has to couple what we're doing in the AG's office to protect our people and also what other stakeholders are doing as well.
That's Andrea Joy Campbell. She's the Attorney General. She's with us for the hour, live in the studio in Springfield. Let's go to Larry in Munson, I think. You're next. You're on with the Attorney General, and we're at NEPM Studios in Springfield. Hi, Larry.
How are you, Jim and Marjorie and AG Campbell? My question is for the AG. Will you investigate Blue Hub Capital, or how can we trust you given that you haven't removed Blue Hub as a charitable organization? It seems like Blue Hub Capital is getting like special privileges.
Larry, before the Attorney General answers, I recognize your voice. Larry, you were in our studio. You're one of the plaintiffs in the litigation, right?
Yes, I was.
That's fine. I just want to.
I am.
Okay, can you briefly explain? We've talked to you about the shared appreciation mortgage and the Blue Hub situation. Can you give a summary before you answer Larry's question, Attorney General?
So, first
of
all,
okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Larry, first of all, Larry, first of all, thank you for calling in. Before I talk a little bit about our stance and posture, because it actually aligns with, I think, where you are, I would love to hear, if this is okay,
yeah,
Larry to share a little bit about what he experienced.
Of course.
And the only reason I asked, because we met with folks who were involved with Blue Hub post the passage of that legislation, which I was not for giving them the exception or exemption in our consumer protection laws.
The only entity in the state that is exempt statutorily from consumer protection
Exactly,
laws.
which we opposed. And we also supported the lawsuit. But I only asked you, Larry, because one of the things one of the former tenants said, or tenants, I should say, one of the former consumers who had a Blue Hub product is hearing their story. So I'm curious, Larry, I know quickly it's not my program, it's Jim and Marjorie's, but if you could share, and then I'll add.
You know, before you do this, let me just say one thing so we don't totally lose people. Let me explain what a shared appreciation mortgage is, which I never heard of till 6 months ago, I must admit. This is a mortgage you signed. Your home is about to be foreclosed on by a bank. Blue Hub, it's the only company in the state, I believe, that does this, goes in, buys the about to be foreclosed upon property from the bank, sells it back to the homeowner at a 25% margin they add, plus a little higher interest rate, but you get to stay in your home. A shared appreciation mortgage, which some of the plaintiffs, and the judge affirmed this, people didn't know they were signing, says if you either refinance or sell your home at some future date, a significant share of the profit that you may achieve is given back to Blue Hub. So, Larry, briefly, if you can, share with the listeners what your claim was.
Sure. So in 2017, I was looking for a mortgage, and I happened to hear about the mortgage company, Blue Hub Capital. At that time, it was Boston Community Capital. So I contacted them and had a nice chat with them over the phone, and they said, come down and talk to us. We can help you. So my wife and I went down there, and we sat down with them and talked with them, and they seemed like really nice people. They seemed very honest, and they said over and over again that they were a nonprofit. So we thought we were in good hands. We felt safe. So we actually signed up with them. One of the bad things about it was the fact that the interest rate was so high, 6.375, which was double about what the going rate was then. But we, my wife and I at the time said, look, if it doesn't work out, we have pretty good credit. We can get another mortgage from somebody else. So about 11 months later, my wife and I, we got a mortgage from another bank, another mortgage company, and it was considerably less, the interest rate. So I got in touch with that bank. They said, sure, we can help you. Come on down and sign up, and you're good to go. So we did that, and in between that, we get a phone call from that mortgage company saying that, did you know you have a second mortgage? And I said, no, I don't have a second mortgage. I never signed a second mortgage. And they said, well, you better contact that mortgage company because they're claiming that you have what they call a SAM, or a shared appreciation mortgage. So I contacted them. They said, yeah, you signed it. You signed it here. Your initials are on the page. So I found out that, I got trapped into this thing, and I was real upset. But I knew I had to get out of it, because if I didn't, my house was going up in cost. The rate, the price, everything was going to be more to their advantage. So I did whatever I could. I got whatever money I could, and I bought out of it. But so many people that are in our group cannot get...
and Larry, if I may,
they are stuck.
If I just may here, people like you became plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and a judge ruled, I guess roughly about 2 weeks ago, after 5 years of litigation, or 5 years of the case pending, I should say, that Blue Hub, this only company in the state exempt from consumer protection laws, had engaged in predatory lending. And Larry, really appreciate your calling. We were going to bring this up with the Attorney General. You've proposed some regulations that would address this issue going forward. If you could address that briefly and address Larry's question as to whether or not you're looking into whether or not Blue Hub should continue to have nonprofit status.
So that's not what we're looking into right now. What we're primarily focused on is two fronts. One is we followed that lawsuit, and we got involved, and when I say supported, we actually filed an amicus, because one of the questions the court had to deal with is, should the statute be applied retroactively Blue Hub was saying no, we said yes.
By the way, Blue Hub said no, even though the head of the company had testified in front of the legislature, Elise Cherry, that it was not retroactive, and then her lawyers argued that it was.
So we inserted ourselves there, also listening, of course, to people like Larry and others who've come forward to the office. The second is we are still in the process of soliciting feedback from folks on our regulations. So, Larry, I would actually maybe encourage you to stay on because we've met with a lot of folks who've not had a great experience. Blue Hub will lift up some people who have. I don't discount that, but folks who have not. And so we've actually brought them into the fold in developing these regulations. One, in terms of greater transparency and what he just talked about, some of the practices in terms of how we sell things, et cetera. So I'm not going to get in the weeds because we can be here for another 10 minutes.
One non-weed is you're saying that part of the regulation should be that the homeowner knows what the end game is,
Absolutely.
what the end bottom line would be with whatever the shared
Absolutely.
appreciation or whatever it is.
Which they didn't, of course, to his point, they didn't know. So we've been in the weeds with constituents. And why I wanted Larry to share a little bit more, because I think it's, people often say, well, the AG is, bad for business. Not all the time, but sometimes we get this frame from folks and we say, no, we appreciate innovation or products, financial products that will help our people stay in their homes, help them grow their wealth. We support that. But where there are companies where we know we're getting reports from consumers about significant harm to what Larry just described, we also have a role to protect them too. And no one else has a role but us. That is our unique responsibility. And so in this case, we're engaging folks like Larry on the on the drafting and the crafting of these regulations. And before they become final, making sure their voices and stories are inserted. And as one of the she would say she was a victim of Blue Hub, said to us in our meeting, make sure we do not lose the voices of those who actually went through an experience with Blue Hub. So, Larry, thank you for calling in. If you want to stay on, we can stay on with you.
Stay on, we'll get your contact
and sort of pull you into some of those conversations internally.
Before we get a break, if people want to learn more about this, because I think it matters, we had both sides on separately. We had a couple of the plaintiffs, including Larry, Bruce Marks from NAACP, which was the organization that supported it, and several weeks later, we had Elise Cherry, head of Blue Hub, and a housing activist from Western Mass who actually supports Blue Hub. We got to take a break.
Okay, but we're going to be with the Attorney General to the top of the hour, so stay tuned. More from Andrea Campbell. The number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. We'll try to get to as many as we can. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR and GBH and NEPM, live from NEPM Star Studio and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, more than 2/3 of Jewish citizens think the Trump administration is using anti-Semitism as a cover to go after schools like Harvard, according to a new poll. And this week in sports, Esteban Bustillos uncovers the forgotten legacy of a national title-winning soccer team from Andover being celebrated by the town 100 years later. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Massachusetts Maritime Academy, where education meets transformation. Their Learn, Do, Lead philosophy is designed to deliver students prepared for global leadership in careers on land or at sea. Maritime.edu. And Burton's Grill and Bar, featuring a scratch kitchen where each dish is customizable for those with food allergies or restrictions. A gluten-free menu is also available. Details on their allergy protocols at burtonsgrill.com.
Welcome back to Boston. Where are we? Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. I forgot who I was. I forgot where we were. We're in Springfield
at
NEPM. Maybe it is the cream puff. Why don't you have some? Star Studio. That's the voice of the Attorney
General. Go to the
General.
Big E. Get some fried dough. I don't know, fried
Oreos.
Yeah,
fried dough and whipped cream.
Andrea Joy Campbell is with us.
You only get
for
one
the
life.
rest of the hour. You've
Indulge.
all been really patient. Let's go to Pierre, somewhere in Massachusetts. You're on with A.G. Campbell. Hi, Pierre.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Thank you. My entire family was evicted without any notice, and we lost everything, including irreparable business record. And I have heard from others that it is happening more and more since the housing court suspended the due process for eviction. My question for the Attorney General, will you commit to working with Mass Alliance Against Predatory Lending to restore the due process protection and stop this unlawful eviction that's going on now?
Pierre, thank you for the call, and we're really sorry
I
about
think you
what-
should, Pierre. I think Pierre should stay on because it
Please
sounds
stay
like
on
your
line. We'll
case
get your
is
contact
specific,
info, yeah.
and we have a whole division in the office,
Yeah.
front-facing, that deals only with housing issues. So you should stay on. We've also been instrumental in whether it's the eviction sealing process, which has been going exceptionally well, but even beforehand, showing up in the housing court as best we can when people are not entitled to legal counsel, et cetera. So, and even funding mediation programs, et cetera. So, Pierre, if you could stay on, we can follow up with you, not only in the larger policy question, which, yes, we believe in due process, absolutely, especially for tenants. But specifically in your case, we would need to know more on how we can possibly help.
Pierre, don't hang up. One of our colleagues will take your contact information and share it with the Attorney General's office, and you'll hear from the Attorney General. It's that time. It's our monthly opportunity to discuss ballot questions. Now, you certified 44, which is the first step in the process to getting them on the ballot in 2026. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we talk about every month. A mere 71% of the voters voted for question 1. Question 1 is not yet implemented. We have the auditor on who sponsored it, who says you're not acting in good faith. You say you need to hear more from the auditor in terms of the, correct me if I'm wrong, the full spectrum of that which she wants to audit in the legislature. Obviously, by saying that, you admit that some auditing is constitutionally permissible, or you're nodding in agreement. In all seriousness here, the only people getting screwed in this thing are the 71% of the voters, including you, by the way, who've told us on the air you voted for this thing, as did the governor. I find it incredible that smart grown-ups, the auditor, you, your staff, can't reach some sort of accommodation so the public will can be honored here. Where are we?
I don't disagree. And I'm putting this on the auditor. We have had very straight conversations with her team and the auditor over the years and made it crystal clear. If you are limiting your audit to, say, financials or other things, fine. But if you're going beyond that, which she at different moments has said she wants to, it has changed at different times in letters or in conversations. If you're going beyond that, there is a chance it is unconstitutional. So if we're going into a court, the court will ask us, one, what is the legal theory as to why you're here? What do you think is the authority you have to audit the legislature? What's the scope of it? Because it will be limited and possibly unconstitutional if it goes too far, etc. And then we even took it a step further of late and said, if you still want representation and you don't want it to be us directly, we can SAG, we can do a special appointment of an attorney general. We sent correspondence to that effect saying we still need more details even to do that type of appointment. We haven't heard anything. Crickets.
They didn't respond to them?
Crickets. And so this is why I don't want to sort of get in this tit for tat, because I agree with you. We have no time to waste. Given the issues we even just talked about on this call thus far, I don't want to discount transparency, full transparency and accountability for any elected body. I'm fully for that, have been since I was on the city council. Yet we cannot make a move unless we are getting what we need from the auditor. And to my frustration, along with the team, that's not what we're getting.
Okay, if I may, I'm going to be a broken record for 30 seconds, then we'll move on to the next question. I've asked you this before. What I do not understand is the following. Why can't you've said we need the full scope of what you ever may choose to audit the legislature on. Why can't she submit X and say, these are my immediate plans? You either approve them or disapprove them. If down the line she says, I'm going to expand the audit to other things, you can approve or disapprove them. Why can't this be piecemeal rather than asking her to give you the whole bowl of wax before you? I really don't understand
because
that
it
at
is
all.
about transparency, credibility when you go into the courts. And based on the rhetoric.
Why can't you say based on what I know now, based
because
upon what the
we can't
auditor...
do that. And why is that? Based on our correspondence with her, based on our conversations with her and her team, some written, some not, based on even her commentary publicly, the court is not immune. You've said several things. So if you can't go in and say, I only want their finances, for example, if we have seen and heard you say you want to go beyond that, then it's disingenuous to then go before a court or a judge to say, well, we only want to do this now, when that's disingenuous. When you've said or suggested you want to bring the scope of that audit farther, then just be clear with the court up front. Say, bring it all and let the court decide then what is constitutional, what isn't. But we haven't gotten that. And we will be laughed out of court if we go before any judge. I don't care if it's this, our federal Trump work, and accountability work, or any case. We've established credibility as an office for upholding the law and doing it in a thoughtful, honest, and straightforward way. Even in cases we don't necessarily like, we have built that credibility. A judge would laugh us out of court and frankly say, shame on you for not coming with a full and complete picture.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that.
We're talking to Andrea Joy Campbell. She's the Attorney General of Massachusetts.
Coming to you from Springfield.
Coming to you from Springfield. Thank you.
So, Attorney General, Elon Musk was in the news today in the Globe because he was the target of 170 consumer complaints to your office in February and March, the most ever filed against an individual in a 2-month in a 2-month period. Elon Musk.
So this was at the outset when we were dealing with some of the initial actions, of course, by the federal administration, almost around the same time we were dealing with birthright citizenship and them looking to dismantle that. We got complaints based on the fact that Elon Musk and Doge, that newly created entity, wanted to take people's personal information and tax information and use it for whatever purpose nobody knew. So I, along with several other Democratic AGs, mobilized quickly, got into court and won a preliminary injunction to stop him and Doge from doing that. And that is still in effect. If anything, other states that don't have a Democratic AG, but maybe have a Democratic governor who wants these same protections, are looking to sort of join some of our efforts. And so those complaints speak to folks in Massachusetts who are essentially saying, I'll be candid, hell no, you don't get my tax information to do whatever you want and not explain to us publicly why you want our information. And this is regardless of how people voted. This is data security, data sensitivity. And so I think the Globe and others are beginning to sort of ask questions on what the complaints are to our office and maybe other entities too.
Doesn't he have our tax information in Doge already?
So our preliminary injunction says they might have tried to get it, or maybe they got it. You cannot use it.
Okay.
And there's real power in that. I don't want to discount. We have now over 30 lawsuits against the Trump administration and really significant preliminary injunction wins. This is one of them. The other one that I think got lost, which is sad when at the start of school, is our case against the federal administration for trying to take away billions in public education funding. We filed a lawsuit instantly, and they immediately got that lawsuit reevaluated, and ultimately turned on all of that funding, essentially before school started, because of our litigation efforts. And so we will continue to hold them accountable. We're not everything, but at least picking and choosing our battles, especially when it comes to data security, when it comes to also federal funding, where we get millions of dollars from the federal administration for public education, public health, NIH funding, and so much more.
Sarah in Hubbardston, you're on with the Attorney General. Hi.
Hi. Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was calling to see what the Attorney General's thoughts are on towns denying people access to town resources based on the amount of property tax they pay. So, for example, the town of Wellfleet, if you pay under $1,000 in property tax, you can't purchase passes to access town parking lots at the beach, where people who pay over $1,000 can, and visitors to the town can too. So there's this little minute group that for some reason can't. Same with taxpayer shellfishing permit.
I didn't
Sarah?
know that. Wow.
Is it Sarah?
Sarah, it is Sarah.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for calling in from Wellfleet. I love Wellfleet.
I'm in Hubbardston.
She's in Hubbardston, but
Oh, I
obviously
didn't
she has
know
a
that.
Wellfleet connection too.
So is this true for not just Wellfleet? You said town, so is it more than one town?
Yes, there's some other towns on the Cape that have similar regulations in place. So I believe Brewster.
Oh, okay.
And I think Dennis as
Okay.
well. I don't know if there's more, but
So I'm curious, if you're only paying $1,000
I've
in
never
property
heard
taxes,
of
what are you living in? A closet down there, it would seem like.
So
It's expensive.
we
to
own a
live.
piece of land there. We've owned since the 90s, and we have a home in North Eastham, and have gotten parking passes in Wellfleet for decades.
Okay.
And they changed their regulations in December that you can't.
Got it.
Okay, let's hear what the Attorney General has to say.
I'm not in the weeds on that, but can you do me a favor? And I'll never get your town wrong ever again. Can you stay on and just leave your contact information? So not only we can get more information and then follow up through our municipal law unit and others, we approve bylaws, et cetera. So I don't know about this particular one, but would want to learn more and go from there for sure.
Sarah, stay on the line.
Please stay on.
Don't go away. We're running short on time, but this is an important one. Marjorie talks about this almost every day.
What?
Debbie asks via the GBH Daily Newsletter, the power of the ballot. She's quoting you. How can we assure we'll be able to vote in coming elections when Trump is trying to take control of electoral districts? He has talked, for people who have not heard Marjorie say this, he's talked about having to potentially send the military in because he has real problems with the rigged voting machines around the country. Are you preparing for this possibility come midterms?
I feel like we're preparing for everything. And a lot of the election work we're doing, particularly standing up for early voting, mail-in voting, which we have here in Massachusetts, we're actually supporting other states where this is under threat, either by their state legislature, their governor, or the federal administration. So we're actively in the weeds here, and we're staying in contact. But this is why I think, frankly, even against the threats or whatever they attempt to do, this is why we need to mobilize. And sometimes in some elections, you've heard about people waiting in line. And I reflect on the history of even black folks once they got the right to vote, the beatings they incurred, horrific, or frankly, death, right? Never being able to vote. Or if they did vote, they were lynched after. This is a time when we need to mobilize, stand in line, mobilize more people to make it crystal clear that regardless of what they bring at us, they will never be able to squash our democracy and, most importantly, one of the most fundamental foundations of it, the power of the vote.
Couple of things. One from Springfield. What's the status of your investigation into this Justin Hurst and the charge that he was trying to buy votes in the mayoral election 2023?
More to say on that. It's still open, but once I can say something publicly, I will, and hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, and junk fees, briefly, if you can. I am junk fee
fees.
Obsessed.
Everyone should be.
Okay, so what are you doing? Briefly,
this consumer protection. So right now, our junk fee regulations just went into effect early this month. And it's twofold. One is to go after all of those hidden fees that you see in every transaction you probably deal with. So you go to buy a concert ticket, it says $69 when you get on the website. At the end, it's $180. Now we've required these vendors and service providers to make that clear up front to our consumers what those fees are, the total price, what the fees are, et cetera, so you can make an informed decision and go elsewhere. We've already seen changes in the practices of companies. And then the other part of this is all of those what we call a negative option sort of contracts where these auto renews or you sign up through, say, an email, but then you can't actually get out of that contract through an email. If you notice, of late, you should have gotten, if you're a sort of Prime member of Amazon, there are emails going out that people are receiving for the first time because of our junk fee regulations where they say we're about to auto renew. Are we okay to do that? Sometimes the rate or fee has changed. You didn't know that before.
Yeah.
You just got a bill with hundreds of dollars a year later thinking, I just signed up for a trial offer. Why am I still paying? Now they're required to notify you up front and also to let you know if there's been a change in price, et cetera. So this is a game changer. Federal government stepping away from consumer protection. We are not. Affordability, cost of living crisis still exists in Massachusetts. This is one tangible way to take it on.
And let me be clear, this applies to all junk fees except airlines because the airlines are
federally regulated.
And so any other junk fee, for whether it's a meal or a membership or whatever the hell it is covered by this deal.
And there's some exceptions for certain industries if they're regulated by somebody else. Airlines, of course, we would have loved to go after them, but we can't. We're prohibited federally. Another reason you should vote and have people change that. But this is a game changer. If you are, you should see the changes, and most importantly, check out our website, mass.gov/AGO. We put a ton of stuff there on junk fees, and we're really proud of it because no one is doing the consumer protection work like we are in terms of bringing about real solutions that will help you keep money in your pockets.
It's nice to see you.
It's great to see you. It's great to be in Western Mass.
I know. Isn't this a gorgeous studio?
It's so great to be here.
Exposed brick and all that.
And kudos to you all for coming out here and setting up shop. because Western Mass, like many parts of the state, feel left out and left behind. And we tell them all the time, we love Western Mass as far as true Western Mass, Berkshire County, love Springfield. We have an office here in Springfield, too, of hardworking folks. So folks should stay in touch with our office and stay in touch with me as your Attorney General. I'm proud to be your AG.
Good to
see
you.
Thank you very much, AG. Appreciate it. And we've enjoyed being here very much as well.
We really have.
Yeah, and we want to thank you for listening to another edition of BPR and GBH and NEPM. These special broadcasts are part of our GBH statewide partnership, Connecting the Commonwealth. You can keep up with this 24/7 by our podcast. Check out our TikTok page. Our ridiculous performance yesterday at the Big E should be on YouTube by the end of the week. Tomorrow we'll be back in Boston.
I ate my way through Springfield.
Jim, it was was over the top. I mean, it was just disgusting. Anyway, we'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow.
It wasn't. I
was.
was.
The Culture Show's Jared Bowen, Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kayyem, the ACLU of Massachusetts Representative Carol Rose, author Sy Montgomery, illustrator Matt Patterson on their new kids' book, The True and Lucky Life of a Turtle. We want to thank our crew here, Zoe Matthews, Aiden Coleman, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, John LeClaw Parker, Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to the NEPM team who've been great to us. Kara Foster, Chris Schwatner, Liz Roman, Ayu Siranwan, Chuck Dubé, Bart Rankin, Erin O'Neill, Tony Dunn, John Sutton, and Matt Abramovitz. Thanks to the Culture Show.
Can I say one thing here?
What?
I don't have much good to say about anything, as you know. I have a relatively negative approach.
Yes.
The people here were so welcoming and so talented and so great. And Zoe and Jamie from our team back home and Sy and everybody who set it up. This was a fabulous... I don't travel well, as you know. Somerville's a long distance for me, and I'm on the border. But what's the matter with you, Attorney General? But this was fabulous, and we thank everybody, and we're going to come back soon if you'll have
we
us.
much appreciate everything.
Thanks.
The Fabulous 413 starts at 3 o'clock. I hope you can tune into NEPM for that. And sorry about my bad pronunciation, but I always hope to be a better day tomorrow.
See you tomorrow at the Boston Public Library.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in. Bye.